Okay. If I could ask school board members to take your seats, please. School board members, please. It's not working. This is going in and out. This November 11th, 2021 regular meeting of the Fairfax County School Board will now come to order. In honor of our military men and women, past and present, who have served our great nation, we ask that you please rise for the presentation of colors by the Hayfield Secondary School under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Devin Rule, the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance by Student Representative Pranav Chowdhury, followed by a moment of silence and a pre-recorded performance of the national anthem by the Kent Gardens Choir under the direction of Brandy Ogren and Kaylee Peck.
My name is Carson Luck. I'm a student at Kent Gardens Elementary. I'm using the 5th and 6th grade colors under the direction of Ms. Brandy Ogren and Ms. Kaylee Peck.
Happy Veterans Day, everyone. Agenda item 2.02, certification of closed meeting compliance. In order to comply with Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, it is necessary for the board to certify that since the Fairfax County School Board convened a closed meeting on November 11th, 2021, and to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the closed meeting. Is there a motion? Moved by Ms. Somesh, seconded by Ms. Keys-Gamarra. All those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Agenda item 2.03, announcements. Veterans Day is a time for us to pay our respects to those who have served. For one day, we stand united in respect for you, our veterans. Today also marks the 100th anniversary of the first of the unknown soldiers to be laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery. As a sacred memorial site and the grave of 3 unknown American service members, the tomb connects visitors with the legacy of the United States Armed Forces throughout this nation's history. If you would like to review a copy of the agenda and any agenda item that is being discussed tonight, that information may be found at the back of the auditorium or on our website at fcps.edu/schoolboard/board docs. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast on Channel 99 and live streamed on the website at fcps.edu/tv/ch99. A reminder, a mask that covers the nose and mouth must be worn at all times by everyone in attendance. If you have a mask exemption or if you need a mask break, please take advantage of our overflow room set up in the gymnasium. We thank you. Item 7.08, award of contract, Lake Braddock Secondary School synthetic turf field replacement project, has been removed from tonight's agenda at the request of staff. We have several dignitaries with us this evening. Please join me in welcoming Mount Vernon Supervisor Dan Stork, Providence Supervisor Dahlia Palchek, former school board members Janie Strauss, Ilryong Moon, and Ryan McElvin, Sandy Evans, and Pat Hines. And Ms. Palchek was also a former school board member. So was Mr. Twice. Oh, and Mr. Stork. So thank you for joining us. We'll be hearing from them later in this evening. Can somebody, what? Yes, go ahead.
Veterans Day, formerly Armistice Day, is the anniversary of the armistice, which was signed in the forest, oh my goodness, of Compiègne by the Allies and the Germans in 1918, ending World War I after 4 years of conflict. At 5 a.m. on Monday, November 11th, 1918, the Germans signed the armistice. An order was issued for all firing to cease, so the hostilities of the First World War ended. This day began with the laying down of arms, blowing of whistles, impromptu parades, and closing of places of business. All over the globe, there were many demonstrations. No doubt the world had never before witnessed such rejoicing. Veterans Day is observed annually in the United States in honor of all those, living and dead, who served with the U.S. Armed Forces. The school board directs school personnel to provide students with instructional activities that honor veterans and recognize the role of the military in American democracy. Many schools have special events to which they invite veterans and active duty military members of the school community to join them.
All right. American Education Week, November 15th to the 19th, 2021. American Education Week was established in 1921 by the National Education Association to raise public awareness of the importance of public education in America. This year's theme, Reach, Educate, Inspire, reminds all Americans of the importance of public education and offers the opportunity to celebrate public education and honor those who ensure that every child receives a quality education. As part of the observance, community leaders are invited to serve as educators for a day in order to get a glimpse of a day in the life of a school employee. American Education Week features a special observance on each day of the week, including parents, education support professionals, educators, and substitute educators.
Geography Awareness Week, November 15th to 19th, 2021. Established by presidential proclamation more than 25 years ago, this annual public awareness program encourages citizens young and old to think and learn about the significance of place and how we affect and are affected by it. Too many young Americans are unable to make effective decisions, understand geospatial issues, or even recognize their impacts as global citizens. Geography Awareness Week is observed in November and promotes what geography is, why it is important, and the relevance of geographic education in preparing citizens to understand and debate pressing social and environmental issues and problems.
Agenda item 2.04, resolution naming the theater dressing rooms at McLean High School for Janie Strauss. I call on Ms. Dernak-Kofax for that resolution.
Thank you so much, and I would like to invite Ms. Strauss up to the podium for the reading of this resolution. Good to see you, Ms. Strauss. Whereas Janie K. Strauss has always been highly esteemed for her respectful nature, her compassion, her genuineness, her strong work ethic, and her willingness to generously give of her time to others. She has worked tirelessly to provide all children with a well-rounded education so that they have the strong foundation and skills for a successful future. And whereas Janie Strauss is a former elementary and preschool teacher who has been actively involved in education for over 50 years. She earned a bachelor's degree from George Washington University and a Master of Arts in Teaching from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. And whereas Janie Strauss has served on the Fairfax County School Board for 26 years and served multiple terms as the chair and vice chair. She was awarded the Virginia School Board Association Advocate for Education Award in 2018 for her leadership, commitment, and contributions to public education that had a lasting impact on this region and the Commonwealth of Virginia. And whereas Janie Strauss served as the president of the Fairfax County Council of the Parent Teachers Associations and served on many key education and youth-related committees, including the Fairfax County Public Schools Career and Technical Preparation Task Force, the Division Planning Committee, the Citizens Bond Committee, and the Fairfax Framework for Student Success. This longtime resident and supporter of the McLean community was recognized for her outstanding service to Fairfax County and recently named Lady Fairfax of the Drainsville District by the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. And whereas Janie Strauss is the proud parent of 4 FCPS graduates, 3 of whom graduated from McLean High School, where they were active in athletics and arts. And whereas Janie was instrumental in the formation of the nationally acclaimed CAPPES, Critics and Award Program, the CAPPES is an international program for recognizing, celebrating, and providing learning experiences for high school theater and journalism students and teenage playwrights. Ms. Strauss still plays an integral role in the organization as the Vice President and Treasurer of the national chapter and the chair of the local chapter. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Fairfax County School Board names the theater dressing rooms at McLean High School the Janie Strauss Dressing Rooms in honor of this exemplary educator, leader, colleague, friend, citizen, and mentor. I so move.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Tolan. Ms. Dernak-Kofax, would you like to speak?
Yes, I will. Janie, it is a joy to bring forth this resolution honoring you, my colleague, mentor, and friend. As this resolution aptly notes, Janie has made education her life's work as a teacher through decades of volunteer service and is the longest serving woman on the Fairfax County School Board. Yes, yes. Janie is the proud parent of 4 accomplished adult children and 4 beautiful grandchildren. And while Janie's devotions are many, one arena that she is most passionate about is her support and love of the theater and performing arts. She and her beloved husband, Bill, wanted to bring more positive attention to teenagers engaged in creative pursuits. So in 1999, Bill Strauss approached Fairfax County Public Schools Administrator Judy Bounds to begin what would become a showcase for local high school theater and journalism students. With a review and awards process that was 100% student-driven, the CAPIs have grown to chapters across the U.S. and Canada, largely due to the commitment of Janie Strauss. So it's most appropriate that in the heart of McLean, where Janie has resided for many years, where 3 of her children are graduates, that the dressing rooms at McLean High School be named after Janie Strauss. And on a personal note, Janie, I am so grateful to have begun my tenure and to have served for 8 years on the school board with you. You are a model of civility and patience. You respect people and you are inclusive. You are energetic and strong, and you are always there as a trusted counselor and teacher for both family and friends. I thank you, Jenny, for your years of support and encouragement for both me and my family. And I am so fortunate to call you my friend, and I am so pleased to bring forward this resolution honoring you.
Ms. Tolan, would you like to speak to your second?
Of course I would. I have lived in the Dranesville district for 26 years, so most of the time that I have lived there, Janie Strauss was my school board representative. I remember seeing her at a variety of school settings as my 2 children went all the way through FCPS. I was happy to see several very exciting things happen during her time on the school board, including all-day kindergarten and later start times for high schools. Janie was instrumental in making sure all of our students had access to advanced academic studies across Dranesville and the entire school district. My boys took full advantage of this, and I'm happy to follow in her footsteps as an advocate for our advanced academic programs. Janie fostered parent involvement through her work with PTAs, and I'm happy to be connected to our Dranesville PTA leaders now as they continue the wonderful community contributions that they do so well. I'm a huge fan of the work Janie has done for our students participating in the arts. The CAPIs program is a huge success, and she continues to work on creative ways to continue its work throughout the entire COVID-19 time. We had many discussions about that. Janie was also instrumental in starting the current renovation queue that we have and that we are getting to the end of at the end of this year, and we need to start a new renovation queue. We need to get started all over again with that list of renovations and what's happening in Dranesville, McLean High School to start with. I was speaking with Justine Klena at Herndon Middle last night, and she reminded me that Janie is also a huge proponent of our special education programs. I also had the pleasure of being a staff member while Janie was on the board. She was always supportive of our work and innovative ideas and attended countless events to highlight student achievements. She gave of her time freely to benefit and support students. Of course, with Janie's retirement, she left huge shoes to fill on the school board. I want to thank Janie for being so gracious, always taking my phone calls to ask for a historical perspective, to get more information, or to just talk about ideas of how do you work on a school board. I am so proud to see us name the McLean dressing rooms after Janie Strauss, and I'm thrilled to second this motion. Thank you, Janie.
I now call on Ms. McLaughlin.
Janie, it is absolutely wonderful to see you here with us this evening and to see you being honored in such a special way. During our tenure on the board, one of the things I found very magical was what you and Bill created with the CAPIs. Having performed at the high school and collegiate level, I never had the thrill that our Fairfax County and students in the region got to have to perform at the Kennedy Center, but just being a part of that night and being able to present those awards, standing there on that stage, I thought, how many countless children's lives you affected forever, because that is a moment that will live with them for the entire time that they are here on this beautiful earth. So I want to just personally thank you so much for not just the 8 years that we had together, but again, for your decades of service to this county. Too often, people don't realize that this is truly service of love of kids. And for you to give up so much of your time when you really didn't need to, but because you cared so deeply about the school system, about the children, the families, and our employees, to see you being honored here tonight with this wonderful recognition, I'm just so happy for you, and I'm happy to be a part of this special night tonight. Congratulations.
Ms. Corbett Sanders.
Wow, what can I say? I was blessed to be able to work with you not only as a board member, but as your vice chair. And what always struck me was that you are the perfect model of a public servant and a global citizen. And I am forever grateful because of the wisdom that you brought to your work, with that underlying kindness and focus on our children and on our families. It is such a great model for all of us, and I am forever grateful to have been able to spend 4 years working closely with you, and even more so grateful to your children for sharing you with us for as long as they have, and knowing that you're not going anywhere, you're still part of this great community. So thank you, and I am thrilled to be able to support this motion.
Ms. Keys-Gamarra.
Janie, I had the pleasure of coming on this board midstream while you were chair. And I am so grateful for just you sitting down with me, paying for lunch, providing respectful leadership, a listening ear, never getting rattled, no matter what. And you actually pushed me a little bit into seconding the motion for the name change of Justice High School. And I pushed back, and you didn't move. And for that, I am very grateful. You felt that that was something that was necessary, and I didn't really perceive the moment, quite frankly, at the time that you spoke to me. So I'm grateful for your presence. I'm grateful for the way that you dealt with me with such kindness and respect, and really modeling what leadership for this county can look like, and what I really strive to emulate. So thank you very much.
Ms. Sizemore Heiser.
Jeannie, I'm so sorry I never got a chance to serve with you. Although I understand after 26 years. But I just wanted to share, I don't have the personal experience with serving with you that many of my colleagues do, and I've heard them speak about you over the many, feels like years and years that I've been on this board, but it's only been 2. And I deeply regret not being able to learn from you as a colleague, and I hope I can learn from you as a former board member. But I just wanted to say that as a parent of 2 children who are Advent Arts students, including one who just did his Cappies play last weekend, I can tell you firsthand that the Cappies plays for these students are like their playoffs, they're like their championship games. I watch these students, embrace the moment, and this is our Cappies, and this is the Cappies performance, and here's all the Cappies critics. And it was such an amazing thing that you've given the arts. That is an experience that our athletes have gotten, but now our theater students, our arts gets to do it as well. And I just want to thank you as a parent who's watched what it's meant to the students in these performances. So just thank you for that. You are a great role model for me in supporting the arts, and I hope I can do a smidgen of what you've done on this board. And I cannot wait to attend the Cappies this year. So thank you for that, and thank you for everything you've done.
Ms. Omesh.
Ms. Strauss, it is a pleasure to see you and to be able to thank you formally for everything that you've been doing for our system for many years, and the mentorship you've provided even after. I have to say, you have been on this school board for every year that I was in school in this system. And I remember you being that stable force on the board. And I have to say, at the beginning of this resolution, you know, one of the things that Ms. Derna Koufax read to be known of you is how generous you are with your time. And I still remember this conversation that we had for a good 3 hours in Gatehouse, just talking about, you know, school board and the work you've been doing and kids with special needs and how we can be there for all kinds of kids and really championing them and their diverse needs. So I'm just incredibly grateful, and I think, you know, just naming it as one of the younger board members, as one of the youngest, you know, in office, it's tremendously humbling and inspiring to see folks like you who have been leading the way with wisdom and who have been able to show me some of what it looks like to lead. So thank you so much for all that you've done.
And before we go ahead and take the vote, I'll just very briefly offer my comments. Number one, to thank you for your incredible, really a lifetime of service, a lifetime. Long before I started serving on the board, I was a spectator of sorts, I guess you would call it, of the school board. And what always left an imprint for me was really your demeanor, your kindness, your compassion. You know, this is an environment where we get lots of very passionate people who speak to us because it's about our students, our children, and that evokes a lot of passion. And the way you handled conversations and disagreements, I think it's an inspiration. And like Ms. Sizemore-Heiser, I too have a son who is on his way to becoming a professional musician. And one of the highlights of his high school career was indeed serving a couple of times as concertmaster of the Cappy's Pit Orchestra. So thank you very much for everything you have done for our students. And with that, I would like to take the vote. All those in favor of the resolution to name the theater dressing rooms at McLean High School for Janie Strauss, please raise your hands. All those against? That is unanimous. Thank you. Before we take our formal pictures, are there any objections to allowing Mr. Stork and Mr. McKelvin to speak to this resolution from my board members? Thank you. Seeing as there are no objections, we will recognize Supervisor Stork and Mr. McKelvin to come up to the podium. Oh my gosh. I know you very well, Ryan. I apologize. Go ahead, come up.
It's a wonderful opportunity to be able to thank somebody that has been such an inspiration to all of us. I know you all have spoke so eloquently to that. I don't think there's much I can add to that other than on a personal note. Jeannie and I have shared a lot of journeys in our lives, and one in particular has to do with our children, and that, like all of us, we have needs and issues that connect us. And sometimes it's our work, sometimes it's the school board issue, sometimes it's the policy, sometimes it's where we live. In this case, some of that personal connection has to do with what you work through as parents. And for Janie and I, we've worked through a number of things and always had our kind of opportunities to check with each other about what we're doing and how we could do it differently. But those kinds of personal connections are the most powerful ones that you can have in your lives. I know for me, serving with Janie was one of the best things that ever happened with me, but I know what she's done with all of us and how she's connected all of us for so many years is what truly has been the difference in my life, and I know in so many lives, hundreds of thousands of lives. That's, if you think about that, millions of lives if you think about it overall in those 25 years. And as a final note, and this is, I have a hard time saying this, but I also had the deep pleasure and joy of meeting and engaging with Bill Strauss. And Bill was just an amazing individual, obviously a key part of CAPIs and making it happen, and really the driving force. And I think anybody who knows Bill knows the driving force is probably one of the operative words there. But the two of them together really have made such an incredible difference in our community. There are very few people in our community that have done anything close to what they've been able to impart to us. Bill with the humor and always the fast remark, but also a great story. Janie with that stable, steady kindness and compassion and commitment to kids. So again, we've been deeply blessed as a community, and I'm happy to have had the opportunity to thank her and share that with you as well. So my pleasure.
Mr. McElveen, I apologize.
Good evening, everyone. It is my great privilege to speak with you here tonight to honor two very special individuals, Janie Strauss and Ilryong Moon. Obviously, we'll get to Ilryong Moon a little bit later. But first, I want to acknowledge the hard work that this board and leadership team have done over the past 18 months. You have continued to show up at a very challenging time, so thank you for your indefatigable service to our community. The last time I spoke before you was actually at your first board meeting back on January 9th, 2020, to actually launch this naming process. The prior September, Ms. Darnat Koufax and I had begun discussing ways to honor the distinguished careers of these two individuals we're honoring tonight. But we didn't have time to engage completely with the schools and to complete the complex paperwork before the end of our term. I'm pleased that we are finally completing that work here tonight, and I particularly want to thank Deputy Superintendent Francis Ivy, Assistant Superintendent Fabio Zuloaga, McLean Principal Ellen Riley, TJ Principal Ann Bonatatabus, Board Clerk Bev Medeja, former Board Clerk Eileen Mulberg, Barb Gibbs, and Diane Long for their support throughout this lengthy process. As this board and school system leadership knows well, public service often requires persistence. Sometimes you have successes, sometimes you face failures, and sometimes it takes everything you have just to show up. The two individuals we are honoring here tonight, Janie and Ilryong, not only showed up at this dais for collectively half a century, but they never stopped standing up for what was in the best interests of students and staff of Fairfax County Public Schools. We are all beneficiaries of their work in many ways, seen and unseen, and whether we realize it or not, everyone in this auditorium has been touched by them. I, for one, benefited from their leadership both as an FCPS student and as an adult on the school board. Ilryong and Janie didn't know me when I was a student, but Ilryong came to my orchestra concerts. Janie sat on stage at my graduation. These may seem like small things, but in the end, they matter. Showing up matters. The CAPIs and the Theater Arts Program, the World Language Program, International Exchange Programs, Adult and Community Education, ESOL, the Athletic Training Program, the Student Achievement Goals, the School Board Governance Manual, the Portrait of a Graduate, a non-discrimination policy that includes sexual orientation and gender identity. These hallmarks of Fairfax County education would not have been possible or sustained without the leadership of Janie and Ilryong. Janie served as both a mentor and a font of institutional knowledge for me and our colleagues, as you have heard. She served as a motherly figure, helping guide us through the superintendent searches, strategic planning processes, transformative budget proposals and capital improvement plans, audit reports, and undertaking unprecedented initiatives where Fairfax County led the nation. She still serves as a walking encyclopedia and historian of the school system today. As for Ilryong, there are many things I can't say about him in a public forum, but I did have the great privilege of running as a team with him twice for school board and serving alongside of him as two of the three at-large school board members. Together, among other things, we attended countless concerts, science fairs, state football championships, and more than 200 student graduation ceremonies. We even combined our strength to lift Linda Burke across the stage at her retirement ceremony. When he was first elected to this board, Ilryong was the youngest person ever elected to the Fairfax County School Board. And even more impressively, he was the first Korean American to win elected office on the East Coast and one of the first Asian Americans elected to public office in Virginia. Both Janie and Ilryong worked with 5 superintendents, not counting all the interims. And if you can believe it, Superintendent Brabrand wasn't even the most difficult to deal with. Just kidding, Scott. This institution is better because of them. Our community is better because of them. And each of us individually are better because of them. And now, our next generation of community members can remember Janie and Ilryong when they prepare to take the stage for a theater performance at McLean High School or attend a sporting event at TJ. And I, for one, think there is nothing more fitting. Thank you for all you have done, and congratulations, Ilryong and Janie.
Go ahead, Mrs. Strauss.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Dan and Ryan. That was lovely. I've missed all of you for 2 years. I thought after the retirement, why, we'd all go out to dinner and, travel and have great fun. And there I was in my COVID bubble, and my daughters would have tied me to my front door if they could have. So I have survived. But thank you all very much for your very kind words. And O'Brien, do you remember I met with you? You were, I think, in middle school. You were doing a tutoring program.
You're right. I should have mentioned that. Absolutely. I do
That's
remember.
right. I've known you a very long time.
Responded and showed up. Absolutely.
Yep.
And read the book to the kids.
You were
yeah.
just a little girl. But first, I would like to thank all the teachers and the educators and all those who support our children. You became educators to challenge and inspire our students to become all they can be. Here are lyrics to a song my dear Bill Strauss wrote, entitled, I Teach a Child. You will see yourselves in these words. I teach a child to chase a dream and right a wrong, to pass the torch of truth. I ask a child to see the beauty in his soul. I'd like a child to take a path we've never tried, and then that child, with years of learning as his guide, can build a better world, and with real purpose in his stride, he'll find the courage of the hero deep inside. They all have a hero. And that is why all of you teach children. We believe in the promise of our kids. And we work every day because we know if we work hard enough and work closely enough with our parents, we will find that hero. Thank you, McLean High School, for the wonderful education that you've given my 3 daughters, and for your continued dedication to every child in your care. As a school board member, we find out our needy kids, and we also are amazed at the way in which you encircle those neediest of children. Thank you. And thank you for honoring me with the naming as part of the McLean Theater program. McLean High School Theater is very special to me and my family. It began many years ago with the Bill Strauss special of a complete parody of a Gilbert and Sullivan show, fully produced. And Elizabeth Lodel had to learn to get along with the crazy Strauss family. So I'm working with Elizabeth again on another project. Theater is live storytelling, and we all have stories to tell. Through the arts, mankind shares some of our most enduring messages. The arts transcend time, place, culture, and language. Thank you, FCPS, for making the arts part of our core curriculum. Our theater programs educate children about the great works of theater and teach them how to produce theater. The experience of production has special value unto itself. First, there is room for everyone on the stage or behind the stage. High school theater isn't really a funnel toward Broadway. It teaches important life skills. Putting on a show requires focus, discipline, creativity, dedication to the whole group, and everyone depends on everyone else to create the magic. And best of all, it's fun. We need that. So a special acknowledgement to our program at McLean. In 2019, at our last Cappy's Gala pre-pandemic, McLean High School's production of The Lord of the Flies and their excellent student critics were recognized for their excellence. And you again put up with us on the stage with all that sand. Last year, Cappy's was virtual. Our kids produced 58 virtual shows. Theater must go on, especially in challenging times, even if it's in zoomy squares. Woodson did zoomy square Shakespeare. This year, live theater is back. I encourage you to attend a great show in one of our schools, and we'll see you at the Cappy's Kennedy Center Gala in June to celebrate our students and teachers across the region. We're back. Again, thank you all so much. It has been my honor to serve the children and families in Fairfax County and to have had the opportunity to be a proud member of the school board. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. And if the family and friends of Ms. Strauss can come to the front for a picture with the school board. Thank you so much.
Welcome to come to the podium here so you can have, or to the dais stage here for a picture.
Agenda item 2.05. Resolution naming the main gymnasium at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology for Mr. Ilryong Moon. I call on... Okay. I call on Ms. McLaughlin for the resolution.
Thank you, Chair Pekarsky. I am so deeply honored to be able to present the resolution to my dear colleague of 8 years, Ilryong Moon, my fellow Braddock District resident, and my former predecessor as the Braddock District School Board member along with at-large. Whereas Ilryong Moon was appointed as an at-large representative to the Fairfax County School Board in 1995, and in November of that year became the first Asian American to be elected to a public office in Virginia. Mr. Moon served with integrity and distinction for over 20 years on our Fairfax County School Board. And whereas Mr. Moon's fervent belief in service was evident in his work on numerous Fairfax County School Board committees, he was also generously served his time as a member of the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, the Fairfax County Police Chiefs Diversity Council, the American Youth Philharmonic Orchestras, and the Fairfax County Athletic Council. And whereas as a well-respected lawyer, immigrant, son of a custodian, champion of staff, mentor, and valued friend to all who know him, Mr. Moon knows the importance of service to the community and helping those less fortunate. And I do see that Mr. Moon is not up here to be enjoying the spotlight, so we do need you here as we read this. I know how much you love being in the center of attention. And whereas Mr. Moon sponsored the budget proposal that ensured every high school would have a full-time certified athletic trainer, which has made school safer for the past 15 years. He cares about the health and well-being of our student athletes and continues to support the recognition of the valued work of our 50 athletic trainers who are vital to the success of our sports programs. And whereas Mr. Moon's support, leadership, and stalwart presence was a vital part of Fairfax County Schools' activities and athletics for over 2 decades, he could be found at sporting events, graduations, art shows, science fairs, and concerts throughout our public schools. And whereas Mr. Moon is the proud parent of 2 Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology graduates, Jun Young, class of 2006, and Woo Young, class of 2009. He was an enthusiastic supporter of TJ athletics while cheering on his son Woo Young as a member of the boys basketball team, and was always willing to volunteer his time handling concessions, working the ticket booth, serving as an announcer, and singing with that beautiful voice the Star-Spangled Banner. And now therefore be it resolved that the Fairfax County School Board names the main gymnasium at Thomas Jefferson High School for the Science and Technology the Ilryong Moon Gymnasium in honor of his dedicated years of service to both Fairfax County schools and Thomas Jefferson, along with his advocacy for student athletes, athletic trainers, coaches, administrators. I so move.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Corbett Sanders. Ms. McLaughlin, would you like to speak to your resolution?
I would, thank you. This one is bittersweet for me because I truly appreciated, as my time was concluding with Mr. Moon after 8 years of service together, he became such a wise counsel to me. And nothing is more meaningful than the time we served as budget chair and vice chair. And one of the things that was so characteristic about Mr. Moon was not only that he was known for his professionalism and the way in which he focused on treating each and every person with dignity, but one of the things he tried to teach me over and over again is to praise in public and share your constructive feedback in private. And I think that as a result, not everyone understood the analytical mind at times and the deep dedication you felt for accountability. And I really got to see that when we served together as chair and vice chair, the outstanding questions and research and details you brought to your work. I also want to say that it was really wonderful over the years to hear you and the trio with Ted Velkoff and Ryan McElveen with your beautiful voices singing the national anthem at many events that we had here for the school board. And that there is no doubt in my mind that not only are you the longest serving male on the Fairfax County School Board, but also that you and Ryan McElveen surely set a record for the number of graduations you attended. On a more personal note, Mr. Moon, you've heard me share that I am the granddaughter of Canadian-Irish immigrants, and I know what it meant for my grandparents to come at the turn of the century. But what so few people understand is that all that you and your family overcame when you immigrated here from South Korea, the way in which you worked so hard to use education as that opportunity to become the Harvard law graduate, to have your own successful practice, and then continue to not only have two remarkable sons, but again, give over 25 years of your time and your love and your dedication to our school system. You are a beautiful and shining example of why our country, a nation of immigrants, continues to be the greatest place to live in this entire world. I also want to just finally say that, as you know, my husband and my oldest son played varsity basketball at Woodson High School. And the storied coach, Red Jenkins, known throughout the county and frankly throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, the Woodson Gym is named after him. And when I think about what a legend Red Jenkins is, that now you join him as another legend, and that when the community comes into the Thomas Jefferson Gymnasium and sees the Ilryong Moon Gymnasium, they will truly understand why this county's #1 sports fan is now being honored in the most beautiful way and well-deserved way. So you will get to enjoy a basketball that is signed by all of the current board members, former board members, and anyone else we could find who could share their love and appreciation for you on that basketball. So I know I've gone on too long, but we Irish are known for loving our words, right, Ms. Hines? And so I will end with this. My beloved Ryan McElveen, hence the pronunciation McElveen, I just also want to take a special moment to thank you. As you said, this has been a tough 18+ months. My colleagues up here, no one could imagine when we joined and started this third term together what we would be faced with. For you to give us this gift, not just to honor two immensely deserving citizens of Fairfax County and former colleagues, but for us to be able to sit here this evening together and really celebrate our shared humanity, our shared love and respect for the work that we're doing here, and our deep commitment to want to make a difference in the lives of children. I want to personally thank you, Ryan. What a glorious night you've created for everyone, and a well-deserving honor to two treasures here in Fairfax County.
Ms. Corbett Sanders.
Well, that's going to be hard to beat, isn't it, folks? But there's so much to say and very little time to truly recognize this amazing man who is standing before us tonight. I've had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Moon for almost 15 years. When I met him as I joined the Advanced Academic Programs Advisory Committee, and he was the liaison. During the time I've known Mr. Moon, I've just been inspired by his servant leadership. This quietly humble man is wise beyond his years and is an incredible legal scholar whom embodies the pursuit of education in the legal field, but also is a polyglot and recognizes that the most effective way of communicating with somebody is to communicate with them in their native tongue. And so Mr. Moon went off and learned Spanish because he knew that the demographics in Fairfax County were changing and that he wanted to be able to speak to people and recognize them in their own language. And so it just shows what an amazing man and a humble man he is. He also is a biblical scholar and a Sunday school teacher. And children have learned from him for generations and are so inspired, and still I see pictures of them coming up to him as an adult and thanking him for what he has done. He's also a wonderful son to his father, in addition to being a great father to his two boys. So I am so very proud to be able to call you my friend. I've also had the pleasure of serving with you in a professional format when I was the chair and you were the vice chair. You were an incredible partner whom helped guide the work of the board and ensure that all voices were heard, while at the same time ensuring that we focused our work on student success and student outcomes. He recognized that for us to be the world-class school system that our community expects us to have, that we must all be servant leaders and ensure that every student, employee, and parent was made to feel valued and respected. The renaming of the gym at TJ is a great recognition for Mr. Moon's commitment to excellence in the classroom and on the sports field. Many of you may not know that Ilryong has traveled across the state to support our teams at the district and at the state level. And I've had the pleasure of standing on the football field with him and his dear friend and colleague, Ryan McElveen, and sitting in the stands supporting our basketball teams. I was so pleased to have them there with me because some of you may not know, but I am not a real sports aficionado, so having their expertise was very helpful as they interpreted referee calls for me. It was also incredible to see the two of them sharing the joy of being together and cheering our teams on. It just brought a smile to my face, and also to know that they were there for our kids every moment of every day. So when we name or rename school facilities, I believe we need to do so with the concept of inspiring students today and into the future. And Mr. Moon's own story of coming to the United States as a young man, living in poverty and entering our public schools with limited English knowledge. He ascended to the top universities in this country and has become the first Asian American to be elected to office in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It is a story that all of our children can aspire to. It is a story that students going through the halls of TJ need to see and understand. So it is my great pleasure to be able to second this motion for my dear friend, Ilryong Moon.
Ms. Keys-Gamarra.
Mr. Moon, you welcomed me when I ran for office, showed me the ropes, insisted that I go to games. And it was such a joy to be between you and Ryan and to finally get on the board and go, how many graduations are we going to? I never won, but I came close. At least I kept up. But really, I want to thank you for bringing such a level of professionality when I was just learning the ropes. I remember you used to call me, well, you would jokingly say, how's my junior member? And I won't tell people that I called you senior. But at any rate, We had a lot of fun, and I appreciated having another lawyer on the board so that we could balance things and have a conversation to really encourage our colleagues and all of us to think about what we were doing. You never took these duties lightly, and that is what I recognized and respected so much. We didn't always agree. You never raised your voice to me. You were always fair and gave me a listening ear. You challenged me, and then you let me have my own opinion. And I say to you that you showed us what leadership looks like in Fairfax County and how we can look at our entire county and changing demographics and really work together to build for each and every student. So I thank you for your humor. We always stood together on the back here, and I told you I do not, well, at any rate, I won't share all of that. We had several conversations there that will not be shared today. But I do appreciate your leadership and your friendship, and your kindness, and I always am so grateful that you were there for me as I was learning. Thank you so much.
Ms. Dernack-Koufax.
Mr. Moon, I am thrilled to support this amendment honoring you, my colleague, a true statesman, and my dear friend. As this resolution references, your personal story is one that embodies the American dream. Son of a custodian, an immigrant who's worked so very hard to achieve your dream of getting into Harvard Law School, and then going on to practice law and serving your community in so many ways, including 20 years on this school board. I understand there's an autobiography coming out soon, and I cannot wait to get my copy. But I digress there. So getting back to the American dream, we know there is no denying that we as Americans love our sports. And Mr. Moon, you are a fan of every team in this system. And anyone who knows, who has gone to a game with you like I have, who have attended a game or two, know that he cheers, he yells, he'll storm the floor once there's a big win. And he's even grabbed the microphone to congratulate the winning team when there was a championship won. I was there with that basketball team. So what better way to honor you, Ilryong Moon, than to name a gym for you at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology, the school where both of your boys played on sports teams and graduated. Ilryong, you are funny, you are compassionate, you are a great listener. You have provided me with sage advice and taught me patience along the way. You are an amazing father to your son. I appreciate all the support you have given my family and me, and I am grateful to have you in my life as my friend. I am proud to have served with you on this board, and I wholeheartedly support this resolution.
Ms. Cohen.
Mr. Moon, this feels like a very full circle moment because the first time that I got to really start to get to know you was when you asked me to be your guest at the Cappies. I remember when we got there that a mutual friend said, "Dear Lord, you didn't let him drive you, did you?" We'll talk about that later. But I do just want to say to you that over the last crazy 2 years, I'm so appreciative of all you have done to continue to be a resource, to help teach me how to get along with my colleagues, and to always do it with a smile on my face. You always keep us on our toes, and we're so grateful. It's interesting that tonight we are honoring two people who are very short in stature, but who are giants. I'm about to say something nice. But who are giants in their compassion and their care for every single student. And all of us up here absolutely stand on both your shoulders. So thank you for everything you've done.
Dr. Anderson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Moon. I still remember when I had a chance to speak with you at Manoa Bakery when I decided to run for this position. I just want to say I'm very grateful for the time that you have taken, both you and Janie. We had a very long conversation, not even a year ago or so, where you took many, many hours just to walk me through some things that I just really appreciated your guidance and leadership. But because I did not have the chance to really work with you all on the board, like many of my colleagues, I did ask a former member who held this seat, Ms. Sandy Evans, if she would be willing to let me honor you through her words. And so I will share some of the statements that she provided to the entire board to consider. It is with great pleasure that I write to support the naming of the main gym at Thomas Jefferson High School for former school board member Ilryong Moon. Mr. Moon served on the Fairfax County School Board for more than 20 years, including several stints as chair. Having served with him for 10 of those years as a school board member for Mason District and interacting with him as an advocate before that time, I can attest to the fact that he brought the utmost diligence and integrity to his board service. His contribution to our school system were incalculable. During his long tenure, he always put the needs of students at the forefront of his mind and was a stalwart advocate for advanced academics, ESOL services, and world languages. He also advocated relentlessly for improved salaries and benefits for teachers and other employees. Mr. Moon could always be counted on for his thoughtfulness and fair-mindedness on every issue, and for dealing with constituents and colleagues with respect and understanding. While having a full legal practice, he managed to be one of the most reliable and hardworking board members in terms of board work, as well as his enthusiasm and as well as his enthusiastic participant in countless ceremonial and celebratory events for students and staff. As an avid sports fan, Mr. Moon was a familiar presence at innumerable high school athletic events throughout the years, in all seasons, and across multiple sports. With both of his sons having attended TJ, he has a special connection to that school and its sports program. Thank you, Sandy, for allowing me to read your very, very kind words. And I wanted to use these words because I think they better captured who you are representing to Fairfax County Public Schools. And not just to the schools. I have a neighbor, I'm not sure who you know this, she's a few doors down from me, probably no more than 3, who's a very close friend of yours, and your name comes up very routinely on her walks with her dogs. So your reach is broad, even for folks who don't have children in the schools at this time. So thank you for all of your work, and I'm very happy to celebrate you today.
Ms. Tolan?
All of those words are hard to follow, but I just want to attest to the fact that I know even after you finished your term in the school board, I cited you at the McLean-Langley basketball game. So I know you're still going to the games, which we so appreciate. And I also just wanted to thank you so much for your mentoring and your calm and professional advice. Thank you so much for all of the work that you have done for our school district.
Ms. Omesh?
Mr. Moon, despite the college rivalry you always reminded me of every time we met, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, how grateful I am to you for everything that you've contributed. I have to say, like Ms. Strauss, you were there for every year that I was in school. And, you know, thinking back, you were especially an inspiration as someone who ran in a time when immigrants didn't have the same visibility in elected office. And as a speaker, you know, of English as a second language, as someone who worked hard to make it in this country, I was always inspired by that, and the fact that you traverse such difficult terrains that I don't know is always acknowledged to get to where you are to serve and live that passion that you came to bring to Fairfax County. So I really just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being an example as a fellow man of faith who always did that in stride, and as a bigger person to bring people together. And I'm inspired by that and hope to continue learning from your wisdom.
Ms. Sizemore-Heiser?
Thank you. Mr. Moon, as an at-large member and the first Asian American elected to public office, you're especially a relevant trailblazer for me, but the one way you may not realize it is your sense of humor, your kindness, your sage advice, and your adoption of the sports in your adopted country. And I hope you take this as a compliment because it's the highest compliment I can give. Reminds me of my father. He also was an immigrant, and he became a rabid 49ers fan, Denver Broncos fan, and his sage advice and kindness and sense of humor is what I see in you. And so I want to thank you for giving that gift to all of us. I'm sorry I never got a chance to serve with you, but in meeting with you, especially as I became vice chair, and the advice and kindness you showed me has really helped inform me of my work here. And sometimes I feel like, my father, who passed away many years ago, is right here. So I hope one day I can go to a basketball game with you and see the same spirit. So thank you, Mr. Moon. Thank you for your tireless work for the students and staff of Fairfax County Public Schools. And thank you especially for your generosity of spirit no matter what. Thank you.
Mr. Moon, my turn. I am just so humbled that I get to sit here tonight and honor you. I think I'm known as somebody who kind of gets right to the point of things and rather quickly. And getting to the point is that you're just an incredible human being, an incredible human being. You're humble, you're kind, you're honorable, you've got strong integrity. You're there to help everyone whenever they ask, and even when they don't ask. You're a man of deep faith. I've treasured our time together, the service that you shared with me a couple of years ago. And you're a model and an inspiration to so many of us, obviously, but so many students and people in my community. When I go out, I still hear about Mr. Moon from many people. You have been a mentor to me the last couple of years, and you have become a friend, and for that I am deeply, deeply grateful to you. And while your service ended on this board, what many people don't know is that your service to our community and to children continues. You are continuing to look for ways to help our students with their education, to progress, to become more successful, and to have more opportunities. And for that, I thank you. And with that, it is my honor to take a vote on the resolution to name the main gymnasium at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology for Ilryong Moon. All those in favor, please raise your hands. That vote is unanimous. Before you speak, Mr. Moon, I did want to invite Mr. Stork, who wanted to share a few comments.
Well, first thing I want to do is to bow to Mr. Moon and to thank him very humbly and sincerely for his decades of service, and not only to the board and to the community, but really our connection that goes beyond decades. I had a number of stories, but this has been a long evening already. You all have been so eloquent, far more eloquent than I could possibly be about what he's done and what he's given. I would just let that stand as said. I will mention two things. One is that I had the wonderful opportunity to take a trip to Korea when I was on the school board that really was my introduction to Korean culture and the Korean community, which deeply helped me better understand the passion, the commitment to education that not only is Mr. Moon's, but truly the Korean community. And that was a blessing, and it is, I had not had the opportunities that he had to do all those things when you were younger, maybe not intentionally, but it was part of your life. But the many other trips and many other connections that he's made with Fairfax County and Korea has been huge across the board, not only the county, but also schools. So those connections are long-lasting and have made a real difference in all of our lives. So I wanted to personally thank him for that and his work. And then a side trip to China that I personally did on my own, but he helped to schedule for me. And little did I know when he scheduled it that it was a wonderful trip, but he scheduled it through a Korean travel agency. And so my whole trip in China was with a Korean group, and no one spoke English. So I learned a lot about how to communicate. But that's the joy, again, of connection. The last point I wanted to make is something that I know. You all have spoken about it really throughout the conversation tonight. His absolutely deep commitment to our frontline workers, folks who are making a difference in schools, the commitment to the folks who need a little bit extra hand, but more importantly need to be recognized for the work that they do. Custodians, teachers, aides, folks who are always seen as the most crucial part of the operation, but we all know, particularly in these COVID times, how central they have been to us. And frankly, how important it is that they be paid equitably, be treated equitably, and be honored equitably. And I know that that is a key part of who you are and what you've taught to many of us. And I thank you ever so much for that commitment and that education that learning you provided to all of us. And as a last note, I want to thank not only Mr. Moon as vice chair of the board, I want to thank my friend and team member from Mount Vernon District, Karen Corbett-Sanders, when she was chair, the commitment that you all made to the Joint Environmental Task Force, JET, our commitment to all things environmental and making a difference in reducing our carbon emissions, et cetera. We've made incredible progress because not only your leadership there and Ms. Corbett-Sanders' leadership there, but across the board in doing things, teaching kids, making a difference in their lives, because we all know how critical that commitment is right now. And I know your ongoing commitment and support for those can make an essential difference in not only our lives, but more importantly in our children's lives. So thank you again very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Stork. Mr. Moon.
The Honorable Madam Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the Fairfax County School Board, and also the Superintendent, Dr. Brabrand. Good evening. As I understand that the brevity is a virtue, I am going to keep my remarks very brief. But before I go to this very brief script, I need to rebut some of the things said by Mr. McElveen and some other board members. Mr. McElveen, there is no story that you cannot share in public. As far as my driving behavior is concerned, I know I drive way too slow. I mean, that's something that I cannot get over. With that said, I am truly honored and humbled by this naming resolution, and I appreciate it. As a former school board member, I know pretty well what efforts go into bringing this kind of resolution to fruition. So I want to thank all those people involved in the process, most importantly, students, parents, teachers, and administrators at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. I also want to thank the superintendents and the school boards, clerks' offices for their support. Special appreciation goes to the 4 individuals who wrote the letters of support. Former school board member Sandy Evans, Bill Kern, Heather Murphy, and of course, another former school board member of mine, school board member Ryan McElveen. I understand that it was Mr. McElveen who has led the entire process from the beginning for both me and Jenny Strauss. By the way, as far as Jenny Strauss and I are concerned, yes, we were the 2 shortest school board members, and that has something to do with the longevity of the service on the board. So be careful. That's going to happen to you. I have never been good in any sports, whether in Korea, where I was born and grew up until the age of 17, or here in the US. In fact, during my high school freshman year in Korea, I received all A's, but there was one B. And that B came from the PE class. Back then in Korea, you had to be strong and fast to get an A in PE. And I was not strong, and I was certainly not fast. However, I love watching and supporting sports, and I always enjoy cheering for the Fairfax County Public School teams. Talking a little bit more about sports, when I first came to the US in the middle of my high school years, obviously with a language barrier, everything here in the US being completely new to me, I struggled to get adjusted to new surroundings. But it was the sports. It was the sports. A couple of good native-born friends of mine introduced to me, took me to football games and basketball games where I saw for the first time in my life what the football game looked like. I had a hard time following where the ball was going, and I didn't understand the rules at all. But my friends were very patient with me, explaining to me every rule of the games, and we got to know each other really, really well. So it was the sports. And I must tell you, my friends on the board, sports is a universal language. Sports can help our students and members in the community overcome whatever the barriers there are, whether it's culture, language, or social or economics. It's a sports that can bring the mankind together. This resolution is especially meaningful in that the students and the teachers and community members who use the main gymnasium at TJ would have opportunities to ask why my name is associated with the gym. They may get to think about what serving public means and how we can all do it and why we should all do it. It can also remind us about the importance of free and high-quality public education that we should continue to provide to our students, and how we should prepare our students to be courageous, to step up to the plate, to make contributions to well-being of the communities they belong to. Once again, I feel honored by and grateful for this resolution. But now, before I bid a good evening, I need to thank my former colleagues who are here for me and Jamie, Pat Hines, Delia, Dan for speaking so eloquently. Of course, Ryan, I'm not going to forget you. And that's Sandy, of course, who wrote one of those 4 letters in support of me. And also, as we recognize the School Psychology Awareness Week, I want to thank all the school psychologists for their hard work. And thank you, and have a good evening. And I'm taking my basketball with me.
Mr. Moon, at this point, I would like to invite you, along with family, friends, and all supporters, to the dais for a photo with the school board.
Agenda item 2.06, School Psychology Awareness Week. I call on Ms. Omesh for the recognition.
School psychologists are uniquely qualified members of school teams serving students, staff, and families. School psychologists receive specialized advanced graduate preparation that includes coursework and practical experiences relevant to both psychology and education. They apply expertise in mental health and learning and behavior to change lives by taking actions to help children and youth succeed academically, socially, behaviorally, and emotionally. In alignment with the FCPS strategic plan and portrait of the graduate, school psychologists help individuals realize their own abilities, develop the skills they need to cope with the normal stresses of life, work productively and fruitfully, and be valuable contributors in the community. School psychologists help students develop the social, emotional, and life skills necessary to realize personal achievement and growth, and to build resilience and a sense of belonging. Through the delivery of direct services using evidence-based practices, school psychologists help students build social and emotional competence and the skills required to actively engage in learning. School psychologists collaborate with school teams to develop universal prevention and intervention practices across multi-tiered systems of support. These practices foster resilience, increase educators' understanding of social and emotional development, reduce barriers to learning, and enhance students' protective factors. School psychologists bring knowledge of data collection and analysis to team discussions, which informs the development of interventions and monitoring of student progress. School psychologists intervene when students experience mental health issues, which may require a thorough risk assessment, intervention through individual or group counseling, and helping to connect families to community resources. They are members of crisis response teams and risk assessment teams. They assess and assist students at risk of harming themselves, and they teach and implement trauma-informed practices. School psychologists consult with school staff and parents to further their understanding of youth mental health and empower them to develop the necessary skills to respond to complex student needs. All children and youth can face problems from time to time related to learning, social relationships, making difficult decisions, or managing emotions such as feeling depressed, anxious, worried, or isolated. School psychologists help students, families, educators, and members of the community to understand and resolve both long-term chronic problems and short-term issues that students may face. They're a highly skilled and ready resource in the effort to ensure that all FCPS children and youth thrive in our schools, our homes, and in life. I'd like to welcome the staff from the Department of Special Services to please join me and the rest of the board at the dais for a photograph. Or not, but let's give a big round of applause to all of our school psychologist support teams.
Agenda item 2.07, Fairfax County School Board Budget Priorities Resolution. I call on Ms. Corbett Sanders for the resolution.
Whereas the Fairfax County School Board is committed to ensuring that every child is provided a world-class education that includes access and opportunity for strong academics, workforce development, and the arts, allowing them to achieve their full potential. And whereas the Fairfax County School Board is committed to ensuring that FCPS continues to be able to attract and retain the best educators. And whereas the Fairfax County School Board recognizes that COVID-19 has had a detrimental impact on our students' learning and mental health, which has resulted in exasperating achievement gaps and learning delays. And whereas the Fairfax County School Board recognizes that Fairfax County has balanced previous budgets by delaying investments in major maintenance for buildings, be it resolved that the Fairfax County School Board directs the superintendent to develop a budget proposal based on the needs of the school system that prioritizes investments to mitigate and remediate the impact of COVID-19 on academic achievement, learning loss, and achievement gaps. Investments in literacy and the science of reading, access to advanced math and STEM opportunities in all elementary schools, and prioritizes the upkeep and development of outside learning spaces. Teachers and administrators are provided the time to participate in professional development and planning to meet the students' needs. Provides needs-based staffing to include teachers, instructional assistants, administrators, school counselors, nurses, psychologists, social workers, behavioral interventionists, specialists, parent liaisons, translators, and supports for after-school, co-curricular, and extracurricular activities, and implements recommendations of the Advanced Academics and Career and Technical Education Studies and the Special Education Audit, ensuring that our students, building, and transportation staff receive competitive compensation to include a step increase and focus on the needs for a healthy learning environment to include proper facility maintenance, and provide the board recommendations for savings and reallocations of funds based on staff evaluation of programs and expenditures. I so move.
Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Keys-Gamarra. Ms. Corbett-Sanders, would you like to speak to this resolution?
It's actually seconded by the Vice Chair for Budget, Ms. Tolan.
Seconded by Ms. Tolan. Thank you. That's okay.
That's
Ms. Corbett-Sanders.
Yes. Hold on one moment. I'm sorry. I want to bring up my notes. So this resolution represents the first time that the school board has provided broad guidance to the superintendent as he prepares his budget and it reflects a follow-on motion that this board approved last year during our budget deliberations. Under the state code, the superintendent is required to bring to the board a proposed budget that is based on the needs of the system, and he will do so in January. Providing budget guidance is a best practice, which is similar to the approach used in our neighboring jurisdictions, including Alexandria, Arlington, and Loudoun County. This guidance identifies those areas that this board feels are the most important needs of the school system, and our focus in this guidance is putting students first and addressing the needs of our students and staff as we emerge from this global pandemic. The guidance also provides a framework for our initial discussions with the Board of Supervisors, which is scheduled for later this month. I want to thank Ms. Tolan and all of my colleagues for your help in developing this guidance, and I especially want to thank Ms. Burden and Ms. Wigington as they work with us in this budget development process. So I hope that you will all support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Corbett-Sanders. Ms. Tolan, would you like to speak to your second?
Yes, thank you. I do also want to thank my colleagues for their careful consideration of budget priorities to allow us to pull all of those together to develop this resolution. The resolution is meant to be a big picture view of priorities so that the superintendent and his staff can work on more particulars around this. And we can share this with the Board of Supervisors in the week before Thanksgiving as we start to look at our joint budget process over the next couple of months. Happy to support our strong academics and workforce development efforts. And importantly, as I spend time out at our schools and talk to principals about what is happening to support our students academically and socially, it all comes down to our staff and the hard work that they are doing in their work with our students. We must make an effort to take care of all of our staff and show them that we value their work by compensating them for what they do and to make sure they have the professional development that they need to bring educational best practices to our classrooms. COVID-19 and issues with ventilation and use of space has highlighted the need to keep our facilities maintained and to allow our students and staff to learn and work in places that are as healthy as possible. I'm happy to support this resolution.
Mr. Frisch?
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank our budget chair, Ms. Corbett-Sanders, and our vice chair, Ms. Tolan, for the collaborative process that is already underway, and for a process that is already, showing us that many of us see eye to eye on the priorities that we would like to pursue in the budget this year, especially when it comes to investments in the science of reading and literacy, advanced academics, STEM, advanced math. I look forward to the budgeting process as it goes forward and to continuing to have these conversations, not only with all of you, but with staff and with our colleagues on the Board of Supervisors as well. But if this resolution is any indication of where we're headed, I think we're going in the right place, right direction. Thank you.
Ms. Marin.
Yes, thank you to our Budget Committee Chair and Vice Chair for this resolution. I think this is a great example of how the board is tasked with setting the visionary policy that the superintendent and then staff are charged with implementing. And I think, as has been said, having alignment around key issues about literacy, math, STEM, career development. This morning I was at our Career Technical Education Committee, and there's no doubt that there are amazing things happening in this school division. The more we can strategically align them and integrate them, budget, and make sure what we're investing is really returning on that investment for student success, this will just continue to be even better offerings for our students and the benefit of our community. Thank you.
Ms. Keys-Gamarra.
Thank you. I too want to thank our budget chair and vice chair for putting this together, having conversations with us as really as a result of our retreat earlier when we talked a little bit about our priorities, and I wanted the public to know that this has been a continuing process. We've also done this a bit earlier this year in the sense that we did a forecast work session this week. And what I see throughout all of the recommendations is a commitment to improve access to opportunity for every student in FCPS. Improving that opportunity to have experiential learning, to enhance our high school experiences, and to really start to rethink that so that our students feel that they have the opportunity to really explore their best selves and their talents, and that they are supported by their academic experience. So I say thank you to our chair and vice chair for the budget, and to my colleagues.
Thank you. Go ahead and take that vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that vote is unanimous with Dr. Anderson and Ms. Derenak-Kofax away from the table. Thank you, everyone. Agenda item 3.01, Superintendent Matters, and I'll now call on Dr. Brabrand.
Thank you, Chairman Pekarsky, members of the board. First of all, I just need to say tonight is one of the most inspiring moments I've experienced as a FCPS employee over a span of 30 years. We just saw two giants in Fairfax County, and if there were a school board National Hall of Fame, those two people would be in it. And I think today, when we think about school board service, what you all have been asked to do, what they were asked to do, we really got a chance to see history in the making, and the history of FCPS with leaders like them, and the history that we will be making, you all as a board and working with me and the administration, that school board members now more than ever are the heart of our community, the heart of our schools, and it was just an amazing night. Speaking of partnership with the administration and the school board, I certainly want to share some updates with you that I talked about at the work session on Tuesday around our quarantine lengths. This school board has been a strong advocate, and we have had conversations now over several weeks about looking at reducing quarantine lengths to limit the impact on students who are close contacts. I share in the desire that the board has expressed. And this week, we learned that Fairfax County's community transmission dropped from substantial community transmission to moderate community transmission. A level, yes, applause, a level we have not seen since July. So as a result of these changes, coupled with the low transmission we continue to see in our schools, We will be shifting our quarantine length from 14 days to 10 days effective this coming Monday. In addition, it is my plan to further reduce quarantine lengths down to 7 days by December 1st as we ramp up our diagnostic testing with our vendor that will be starting on Monday. There will be full communication to our community tomorrow, and we look forward to continuing to bring you updates as we, I think, enter the final phase of this pandemic. I also want to just thank folks as we go and talk from quarantine to vaccination, because now we got great news just in the last several days of the vaccination availability for elementary kids. And I was honored, as I know you were, Ms. Pekarsky and Ms. Sizemore-Heiser, to be a part of a national rollout of the COVID-19 vaccination for children ages 5 to 11 that we got to do Monday, where we welcomed the First Lady of the United States of America and the United States Surgeon General to a vaccination clinic at Franklin Sherman Elementary School, where, ironically and historically, they were the school where the first polio vaccine was administered in 1954. FCPS is proud to be leading the way in the vaccination rollout for children ages 5 to 11, just as we did in 1954. And we're thankful for the partnerships with the Fairfax County Health Department, with ANOVA, and with the Fairfax chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, all who were present and all who've been working with me as we have coordinated a complete, comprehensive rollout of the vaccination to our kids at the pediatrician clinics, at ANOVA on the weekends, which has just gotten tremendous demand for their mass vaccination center, the mass vaccination centers at Tyson's and at the government center with the county health department, and beginning in the days ahead, pop-up clinics at schools that will be done after school on weekends in our areas where we're still seeing unvaccinated levels of the community and access issues. So I'm thrilled with that partnership, and we will continue this partnership in the weeks and months ahead. I am optimistic, as I said, that we are in the final phase of this pandemic. I do encourage the superintendent, families to get their children vaccinated and to speak, as the Surgeon General has said, to speak with your doctors, speak with your healthcare providers if there are questions and concerns about the vaccine. And finally, I want to wish everyone a happy Veterans Day. Today, our schools honored Veterans Day, and yesterday I had the opportunity to participate here just over at Gatehouse, just across the block, in the recognition of the 246th birthday of the United States Marine Corps. And we have many, yes, let's applaud that. We have many Marines in Fairfax County Public Schools and our employees, and many of our employees who are the sons, daughters, sisters, brothers, not only of the Marine Corps, but of the entire United States Armed Services. We celebrated all of the branches. We listened to all of the patriotic songs. And I actually got to hear for the first time the song for the newest part of the Armed Service, the Space Force. And it was really cool. It just reminded me of watching Star Trek as a kid, the actual emblem and the music. It was really pretty cool. But to be serious, we know we've had many challenges over the last 20 months, but Veterans Day reminds us that there have been challenges over the entire history of the United States. And people, our veterans, have stepped forward, and their sacrifice, their bravery are an example for all of us to continue to follow today, tomorrow, and in the years ahead. So thank you very much, Chairman Pekarsky, for giving me a chance to share my superintendent matters a bit earlier tonight so folks could hear the great news about our quarantine approach in the days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brabrand. It is indeed fantastic news. Agenda item 4.01, community participation. The next order of business is community participation. Speakers must limit their remarks to no more than 2 minutes in length. At the conclusion of 2 minutes, the microphone or video will be turned off. School board members will be listening but not responding to individual speakers. The school board will not hear statements involving issues that have been scheduled for public hearings, such as capital improvement program, budget, and boundaries. Comments targeting, criticizing, or attacking individual students are not permitted during public meetings. Complaints regarding school-based employees should be directed to the appropriate school principal or other school official. Speakers should refrain from using personally identifiable information in connection with an individual student or school-based employee. Additionally, speakers should be respectful and observe proper decorum in their statements, avoiding profanity, inappropriate gestures, shouting, and comments that run counter to the spirit and letter of the school division's non-discrimination policy. All statements should be directed to the school board, and speakers should remain at the podium until concluding their remarks. In-person speakers should wear a mask when addressing the board. We are very grateful for everyone who has come today to speak to us. We thank you for your cooperation and for your patience tonight as we had those special recognitions.
Our first speaker is Christy Hudson.
On this Veterans Day, thank you to our FCPS families and educators who have served or who continue to serve. Your service and sacrifices are unparalleled, relocating every 12, 24, 36 months to new schools in new states, sometimes in different countries, in different continents, is incredible. Maintaining continuity of education for your dependent children during a pandemic exacerbated your challenges and also exposed some cracks in our school system about how military kids are treated. Despite this, you continue to serve, ensuring our country remains the home of the free because of the brave. So, on behalf of parents, to all of our military kids, educators, and families, thank you, and happy Veterans Day. Speaking of kids and parents, it's been 19 months now of us doing this, parents standing here beating our heads against what feels like a brick wall. Our words, our calls, our emails, our kid-focused advocacy, all too often falling upon deaf ears. Recent developments in the Commonwealth have made it clear. Parents are tenacious. We won't be shut out of our children's lives, and we expect a seat at the table when it comes to taxpayer-funded public education. I'm asking you today to appoint parents to the Public Engagement Committee that will be responsible for choosing our new superintendent. Invite us to the conversation. We have value to add, and allow us to have a say in who will lead FCPS into the future. Parents are ready to move forward. We want to be partners in education, but we need you to let us. So please stop shutting us out and instead invite us to help.
Our next speaker is Stephen Brussel.
In August, I attended a virtual return to school town hall hosted by the superintendent on the new safety protocols for in-person learning. In the meeting, Dr. Benjamin Schwartz was introduced as an expert on this issue. He claimed that all studies show that masks help prevent the spread of COVID-19. This sweeping statement is both one-sided and false. I know many studies that indicate that mask wearing does not help prevent the spread of COVID-19. The announcement email said that we could call in live. I tried to call in to discuss the science and statistics behind the mask wearing policy and the potential adverse effects physically, socially, and emotionally in children wearing masks all day. However, for me to call in, I needed an access code that was not provided. I called in around 100 times during the event to verify this, and I emailed the event's organizer. Thus, this was a false town hall, potentially accidentally. I sent a message to the superintendent about the issue. It has now been 3 months without a reply. I also reported the issue to the school board's inspector general. He determined there was no fraud, but refused to explain what happened. This looks suspicious. Democracy and science are traditionally based on an in-depth examination of both sides of any issue. Education should be about teaching students to think critically and ask questions rather than accept a narrative. We must set an example for our children. Thus, it is essential that we reschedule an in-person town hall with Dr. Schwartz on these protocols. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Gina Lincecum.
Good evening. I'm the parent of a recent graduate from FCPS, and I have 2 more in high school. As my friends and I came to the last board meeting, we wanted to express our appreciation to all of you again for your time and effort on the school board. Don't feel that you're getting enough appreciation for what you're putting into this during a difficult season. I really appreciated hearing about Ms. Strauss and Mr. Moon this evening. And on behalf of my family and others, I would like to thank all of you for the updates that you passed in July to protect trans and LGBTQIA+ students and staff. I did ask my high schoolers if there was any message they would like me to pass along this evening, and they both mentioned feeling safe in school. And I just wanted you to know that. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Amy Burns.
My name is Amy Burns, and I'm a monthly payroll tech at Gatehouse. I'm here to ask for your help with the salary inequity of payroll techs that appealed the 2019 denial for reclass and those techs that came after. I have documents of our 4-year struggle if you need them. There are 2 chapters. The first, 2017 payroll department applied to reclassify BOAs to payroll techs, a position that more accurately reflected the work we perform every day. We were told that all we needed was one person to sign off. In July of 2019, we were denied and told no recourse. We found an application for appeal for denial hearing. I represented our payroll team, and we won. We were payroll techs, but only in title and not in the salary that goes with the tech position. Chapter 2, for 7 months, I tried to find someone to explain why the salary did not go with the title we won. Twice I was asked by my director to stop for a week. I complied each time. I submitted a FOIA request for reclassification with budget implications, and it was 48%. I finally asked Marty Smith to help us and gave him my documentation. March of 2020, as COVID was hitting, we got our results. Got a career ladder back, small salary adjustment, but not to the tech position, and only back to 2019. The usual is the date of application for reclass. I was asked if I was done by my director the day that we got our notice. What we fought for in 2021, we achieved, just not for the participants of the appeal. The new hire policy brings in all new hires at a step 3+ experience. We are the senior members with the
Our next speaker is Kim Putins.
Good evening. I am a parent in FCPS. Quoting the words of Nelson Mandela, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. Here's how children have been treated by FCPS. Instead of listening to the local, federal, and international public health entities about schools being safe, you favored political motivations to keep kids out of school for over a year. You kowtowed to political pressure from teachers' unions, but ignored teachers' pleas about virtual and concurrent learning. You ignored and gaslit parents who raised the alarm bells about isolation and loss of learning from virtual learning, while the rate of suicides, depression, and anxiety skyrocketed. You imposed a vaccine mandate on healthy young athletes while ignoring that the true risk is to kids who are obese, which is on the rise. You espouse equity while ignoring decades of studies and real-world examples showing that education is the key to ending the cycle of poverty. You muzzle kids every day with a ridiculous mask mandate when you have a 0.003% risk of dying from COVID. More kids die each year from the flu, from drowning and choking. You denied special ed students in-person learning last year, but rented out our schools to provide childcare and learning pods. You asked parents to help teach our kids virtually for over a year, but ignore and mock parents who want to have a say in our kids' education. And my absolute favorite is you don't stand up to hypocrisy about fundraising and using our kids to fundraise in person for the benefit of the schools, but you do nothing to help stand up for them when it comes to celebrating them at an awards ceremony in person. You all have been anti-student and anti-parent for over a year, and we will not forget it. Get back to educating our kids.
Our next speaker is Robert Weirty.
Good evening. First of all, recognizing today is Veterans Day, I want to thank all veterans who are present or watching for their service in defense of our country. A self-governing republic conceived in liberty, not as a Wilsonian administrative bureaucratic state. Now to my topic, transgender policies. These policies, especially with regards to athletics, force girls to compete against biological males, which is inherently unfair due to biological differences between males and females, puts girls at a disadvantage when competing for college scholarships. Follow the biological science. Puts girls in dangerous situations, as has been so tragically shown by recent events in neighboring Loudoun County. Are we to believe similar events have not occurred here in Fairfax? What policies and procedures has the school board and each school's administration put in place to prevent such incidents? And when they occur, what is the school board's protocol for informing families about the violent incidences that have occurred? The policies also violate law. They infringe on parental rights. They compel speech. They infringe on religious exercise. They violate privacy rights, violate due process, violate equal protection, FERPA, and the enabling statute. So why not transgender teams? Gender-binary sports.
Our next speaker is Stephanie Axelrod.
Hello, I'm a strong supporter of FCPS as a lifelong resident, graduate, and educator with 10 years of teaching experience in the county. I'm here to speak against a requirement at some schools requiring students to eat outside during the cold weather months. My daughter's elementary school class is scheduled to eat lunch outside through the end of the second quarter, or at least January 12th, after which time presumably other classes will rotate to eat lunch in the cold. According to emails from her principal and the regional executive principal, it appears this issue is beyond their jurisdiction. So I'm here to request Dr. Brabrand and members of the school board devise a plan to stop allowing required outdoor lunches as we enter the coldest part of the year. Few adults are comfortable eating lunch outside when temperatures are below 60. Administrators have referenced 45 degrees as a possible cutoff for suspending required outside lunch on a single day. Here are some questions. If it's a 45-degree cutoff, at what time and where are we gauging the temperature? What if there's no sun? What if there's wind chill, so it feels colder? What if it rains the night before, so they have to sit on the cold and wet ground? You may say these questions sound ridiculous, and they do sound ridiculous, but they're the questions you'll be asking the administrators, teachers, and staff to make every day. These dedicated professionals are stretched too thin, and there's not enough staff to oversee outside lunch. In fact, my child's class has been completely or partially unsupervised twice in the past 2 weeks. Ultimately, as a friend noted, it's cartoonishly evil to require children to eat outside in the cold, like something out of a Charles Dickens novel. Also, over 1 million children, including my daughter and my son, have already received their first COVID vaccine this week. I urge you to allow all students to eat indoors as a matter of compassion. Let's return students to the cafeteria for comfort and security. Thank you all for your time.
Our next speaker is Scott Savart.
Good evening. My name is Scott Sevart. I am the parent of 2 Fairfax County school students. Tonight I am speaking about the declining membership trends report. I want to bring to everyone's attention U.S. Patent number 10786570B2, awarded to Rockefeller University in 2018. The patent states the present invention provides methods and compositions for the remote control of cell function based on the use of radio frequency waves to excite nanoparticles targeted to specific cell types. The patent makes use of the following components. Number 1, radio frequency electromagnetic fields. Number 2, nanoparticles that can guide themselves to a specific part of the body and self-assemble and then act as a receiver and a transmitter. Number 3, magnetized metal oxide nanoparticles. The COVID shots contain graphene oxide, which independent laboratories in Spain, Japan, and Germany have confirmed. Graphene oxide is able to self-assemble. This is just one of many similar patents designed to take away our freedoms. U.S. and global elites are experts at dividing us as a way to further grow the power of government. The COVID-19 scenario is just the latest example. The goal of the global elites is to merge artificial intelligence with humans to make us transhumans. Act accordingly, and thank you.
Our next speaker is Frank Mallard.
Good evening. I'm Frank Cole Mallard, father of 3 former FCPS students, Fairfax County resident for about 50 years, retired Voice of America producer, broadcaster, and Vietnam veteran. Thank you for your Veterans Day tribute earlier this evening. I want to salute any veterans in the audience tonight and thank them for their service. I also thank board member Karen Keys-Gamara, I believe she's not here at the moment, for her participation today at McLean High School Veterans Day event. It was great to see some of the McLean High School students participating and learning about Veterans Day and the history of the U.S. military involvement and sacrifice around the world. A part of my time in Vietnam was in Saigon, where I met many wonderful Vietnamese people, some of whom have moved to Fairfax County, which has a strong, vibrant Vietnamese community. They have come here for a better life, to escape communism, and are grateful for the freedoms and opportunities this country affords, especially the educational ones. I recognize that as Fairfax County School Board members, you have many areas of responsibility, most importantly, the provision of academic and technical training for students so that they can become participating, contributing members of the workforce and society at large. So I ask you, please, direct your focus back to primarily educating kids in a safe and healthy environment. Please stop confusing them with the Marxist critical race theory, pornographic books, surveys asking them how many times they've had sex, and if they might be transgender. That only causes confusion and trauma and distraction. When I was working with the Vietnamese people in Saigon, never did I think that 50 years later I would need to ask a U.S. school board to stop confusing students, especially immigrant and special needs kids. But that's what I'm doing, and thank you very much for your time.
Our next speaker is Jennifer Litton-Tidd.
I'm Jennifer Litton-Tidd, and I'm gravely concerned about trauma being inflicted on LGBTQ children. I'm afraid all progress made to hear their voices and support their needs are in danger. I feel the loudest voices bombarding queer children with hatred will prevail over this vulnerable population. Children are being bullied online by adults. They're being shamed, mocked, and threatened by adults. Some fear retaliation for exercising free speech. Adults have bullied children standing at this podium. At the Virginia Disability Caucus and a Neurodivergent Liberation Coalition, we are profoundly concerned with the trauma being deposited onto the developing brains of queer children all over Northern Virginia. Trauma causes permanent physiological damage to the brain and impacts both the ability to learn and life outcomes. It's a lifelong struggle from which a brain never fully recovers. I've suffered from PTSD all my life because an adult brutally raped me when I was 5 years old. It is always a good time to have a serious discussion about rape culture, but comparing queer relationships to pedophilia is not a serious discussion, but a lie. All the noise about banning books and bathrooms is queer bashing disguised as child advocacy. Data shows that LGBTQ kids are far more likely to be victims of violence than to commit it, and hate triples their suicide rates over straight kids. Maya Angelou once said, "Hate has caused a lot of problems in the world, but has never solved any. The hatred our queer children are fielding from adults is not solving problems, but I fear it is creating a lifelong trauma from which these children will suffer. This is no way for them to live, at least for those able to go on living." And restore genderqueer and Lomboy in our library.
Our next speaker is Norm Hall. Norm Hall. Our next speaker is George Becerra.
Good evening, Chairman Pekarsky, school board members, and Superintendent Brabrand. My name is George Becerra, and I'm one of the co-chairs for the Minority Student Achievement Oversight Committee, which, if the public is unaware, is one of the school board advisory committees. We're here tonight to add our views on the current superintendent search and the firm pick for this search, GR Recruiting. We hope this board does not add on other contracts to this main contract like the previous search firm of HYA were able to do for the last 8 years. HYA has done the last 2 previous superintendent searches. HYA was known mainly for its executive search expertise and nothing else, but somehow they were able to obtain multiple contracts for the strategic plan creation, the school board, and new superintendent expectations retreats, and many LT leadership team hirings. HYA also had former FCPS assistant superintendents on its staff. This may have been coincidental, but these type of perceptions sometimes lead to mistrust in the community. In regards to the actual work with the GR Recruiting we'll be doing, I can tell you in a quick sentence what months of outreach and committee input will produce. Everyone will say they're looking for the next savior. Then GR Recruiting will search their own candidate database, and then the whole U.S. for that person. MSAOC knows that the real work of hiring a new superintendent will start after this information is gathered. MSAOC will provide the board in the next month or 2 our suggestions of what could be done differently this time in the community panel, and then the product coming out of the committee panel to the board to make its final decision. MSAOC has been on the committee panel for the last 4 superintendents, last 24 years. As SPS is in a time of transition, keep in mind that this new system hire would trigger resignations from the leadership team members from the end of this school year to the end of the first year of the new superintendent. Some voluntary, such as retirements, some for promotions to other districts, and some forced out. All this being normal when a new superintendent comes to a school district. And for the fact that the Public Engagement Committee has never been involved in the superintendent selection. So please correct that error. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Peter Stanton. Peter Stanton. Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the school board. Thank you for giving me the time and opportunity to speak tonight. I am unlike all other concerned parents here tonight. I host a syndicated conservative radio show called 7-5 Radio, syndicated on the Liberty News Radio Network. My word to you is hold the line. Keep the pornographic books in schools. Let the kids decide if they want to be transgender or not. I mean, kids can't decide what they want for dinner. They can't decide what they want to dress up for Halloween, but let them decide what they want to be in terms of gender. And let the boys dress up as girls and play girl sports. Tell the black kids that they're victims of racism, and tell the white kids they're racist. Why do I say this? I have a vested interest in the Fairfax County School Board. Myself and other independent media such as Nova News Now or NovaNow.tv have a vested interest because you provide so much material. You treat parents like garbage. You got parents out there with signs. You have the FBI investigating parents, as call them domestic terrorism. It makes great radio, makes great entertainment, but I can't thank you enough. But anyways, I got some business cards. Any parents that want some business cards, come and see me. Thank you, keep up the good work.
Our next speaker is Catherine Karras.
I can follow that one. Esteemed members of the board and Mr. Superintendent, I would first like to formally thank each and every one of you for all that you have done and will continue to do for the young learners of this county. My name is Catherine Karras, and I was one of those young learners. Maybe I still am, still pretty young. I attended pre-K at Little Langley, elementary school at Churchill, middle school at Longfellow, high school at Langley, before attending the College of William and Mary. And now I'm a 2L at Wake Forest School of Law. And I know it's not Harvard like Mr. Moon's prestigious qualifications, I'm sorry. But as a part of my education law course, I was asked to attend a school board meeting and make a public comment. So thank you for allowing me to do that today. I made the drive up here because I'm passionate about Fairfax County and the kids that create its identity. Something that I've come to realize during the past year and a half in law school is that while I may know them now, I had no perception whatsoever of the law as it applied to me during my time at FCPS. This is unfortunate, and I would like to speak for current students who don't know how the law can be helpful to their own growth and enrichment. I believe that FCPS should be implementing student learning related to the law. Now more than ever, young students are struggling to focus amidst a global crisis, struggling to create lasting connections, and struggling to, most importantly, value themselves internally. The law is empowering. It has meaning across this country. If nothing else is stable in this world right now, adults at least have the law to give us something to steer us in the right direction. But what about our students? They deserve all the empowerment and individuality that we can give them to thrive and get ready for the real world. It doesn't have to be about how kids can rebel against the law. It can be as simple as providing classes on how to file for or pay taxes.
That was our final speaker. We also have 2 video testimonies. Our first one is Theodore Geis.
I don't particularly appreciate that it's come to the point where I have to speak here tonight since I'm 4,000 miles away and on another continent, but I think it's necessary now. I want to talk about how this school board and other local school board and how these regular meetings have become these new political battlegrounds of America, and how embarrassing it is to everyone, no matter what side of an issue you're on, that it's hostile. I've watched the past few meetings, and I have noticed that these meetings have gradually become more hostile and more divisive. No speaker should be shamed for speaking about their beliefs. Since here in America, we have a freedom of expression, and everyone should be able to share their political thoughts. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but there should be a level of mutual respect. It's also quite sad to see how many of you adults have started using these petty playbooks against each other and fighting more than your teenagers probably do. No one should be doxing or attacking anyone on Twitter. That is completely wrong and disgusting. And finally, I want to share I have a message for the entire community. Doesn't matter whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or Independent. Just please get together and sit down to discuss what issues are of concern to you. There are so many issues that face education today, and I hope that the rhetoric can be toned down a lot and that we have civility at these meetings. We all know there was an election last week, and not everyone had the same reaction or liked the outcome. But as Americans, we have a duty to come together and work on the issues that need solving, especially with education here in Fairfax County. There are so many things that concern everyone, so we need to come together and focus on solving these issues rather than letting divisiveness control the meetings. Please take these words because it's for the greater good of all of us. Please. Thank you. Have a good night.
Our next video is Kathleen Friesen.
Good evening, members of the school board. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I would like to speak tonight about the COVID screening testing program that is supposed to be implemented starting Monday, November 15th. I'm recording this video on the evening of Tuesday, November 9th, and as of now, there is still not full details on how this program will work as the parent consent form has not yet been posted. However, I know from the earlier work session on October 19th that Ms. Corbett-Sanders and Ms. Cohen expressed concerns that the surveillance testing could deplete Fairfax County Public Schools American Rescue Plan elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds, the third group of those funds, by hundreds of thousands of dollars per day. Now, as you know, the majority of the Fairfax County Public Schools community wants those funds to be spent on unfinished learning and on mental health and academic support. Those funds especially need to be going to our most vulnerable learners. And instead, we're talking about using them on a screening testing program that is being implemented at the same time as elementary school students have become eligible for the COVID vaccine, while our older students have been eligible for months, and we have seen the impact of that in the low case numbers in our community. The Fairfax County Public Schools Administration has admitted that COVID spread in schools is vanishingly rare. I would submit that if we have money that we desperately need to use on tests that isn't the ESSER 3 funds, that we should be spending that money instead on Test to Stay, the program to keep students in school despite the fact that they're close contacts of a COVID case without risking the health of their fellow students. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Agenda item 5.02, contract to George Mason University for the provision of coursework to eligible FCPS instructional employees. I call on Ms. McLaughlin for the motion.
I move that the school board approve and award a contract to George Mason University for the provision of coursework to eligible FCPS instructional employees effective as of this date through June 30th, 2027, and authorize the division superintendent or deputy superintendent to execute and administer such contract on behalf of the school board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Anderson. Ms. McLaughlin, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would like to speak to the motion briefly. So I had asked that this be removed from our consent agenda because I did not see posted on our public agenda information related to this contract. And I think that it's important that anytime the board is actually authorizing the expenditure of funds, we and the public need to understand exactly what it is, how much, and why. So, Dr. Brabrand, I would ask that if you or one of your team members could speak to this contract, just to make sure that everyone's aware of it, the cost and the purpose, and if there's any history to this contract.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. Mr. Smith, would you like to share some context for this contract?
Sure, and we have staff available to answer questions about the contract. We have procurement staff to talk about how we're going to pay for the contract, and we have actual staff who it will be bringing the professional development online. And so we'll first go to our procurement staff to talk about the contract itself and the course of the contract, how it will be paid out.
Hi, good evening. This is Michelle Pratt. Turning on my camera here. So this is a 3-year contract. Its purpose is really to provide, and I'll let Kathleen Waltz and her team go into greater detail, but it's to provide tuition benefit to certain staff. There's sort of 3 arms to this program. It includes the Grow Your Own 50/50 tuition sharing model, as well as a tuition reimbursement contract cohort, and then some additional special education provisional coursework. The contract itself is again, it's a 3-year term. The expenditures anticipated over the next 3 years will range between $600 and $1.5 million, depending on the number of cohorts and the number of participants under each of those programs. So I'm going to let Kathleen jump in with specifics about the programs.
Okay, thank you. And what I'd like to share, and Michelle did briefly review that there are 3 parts to this contract. The first part and the newest part of the contract is the Grow Your Own Pathway. This is an opportunity for our current classroom support staff to seek bachelor's or master's degrees in special education so that we can have additional classroom teacher positions for our students with special needs. This is a 50/50 tuition sharing benefit for our current, again, classroom support staff. We are pretty excited about this program because in addition to the coursework that they will engage in, there are wraparound supports for them, including some coaching and mentoring opportunities for them to engage in further professional development. And then what they provide back to the division is a commitment to stay with the school division for 3 years and to provide support during our ESY programs. The second part of the contract is our tuition reimbursement program. We have priority for those staff members who are pursuing coursework in special education. And we have other groups of employees who seek certification in other areas, including early childhood, general curriculum, and adapted curriculum. So the third part of our program is contract courses that we pay for at George Mason University. These are to allow for our staff to earn provisional licensure in special education. We pay the full tuition for these courses so that, again, we can have more people who are available to support our classrooms in special education. So the 3 components are what is represented in this contract, and it is an opportunity for us to meet our goals in the premier workforce and to ensure that we have the best and the brightest for our students with special needs.
I will also add that it's important to note that these funds were approved by the board as part of our ESSER 3 plan, and we had a conversation about how the Grow Your Own programs would work to support our needs here in Fairfax County. And so 1.1 million of these dollars are part of our ESSER grant, and then the remaining would be the requirement of our operating fund.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The other questions I had asked was is this something that we've been doing? Is this a long-standing commitment and this is just a renewal? Or is this an expansion of prior contracted work with George Mason?
Thank you for the question. And the Grow Your Own is the new part of the contract, and the other components of the contract are arrangements that we've had with George Mason University over a number of years. I'm not sure how many years it goes back, but we have provided coursework for the provisional licensure, and we have had the tuition reimbursement benefit with George Mason providing discounted courses.
I'll just add to that the prior contract was approved by the board in January 2019 and expired over the summer. So the portion that this replaces was previously approved by the board.
So I'm just trying to follow a little bit here, that's saying it's a 3-year contract, but actually the language is that it would be effective now through June 2027. That makes it a little over 5 years, not 3. And I do remember this contract coming to the prior board, and the concern is not the good intentions. The concern was the cost per pupil, what were the rates we were paying, how many students were going to benefit from it, how the pricing was done, and so that's what caught my eye on this one. Is again, I recognize we're very fortunate to have George Mason University here in Fairfax County, and they are good educational partners, but I still think that it's important when the board is going to be asked to put its authority in approving a contract, then we really do need to have this type of information that's being presented to us tonight, and then for transparency purposes, the public needs to be able to access and have this information. So I would just say to my colleagues that this isn't the first time that this contract with George Mason has come before us before. I would really urge us again to support this request to Dr. Brabrand that we really do need to have this information posted publicly, and the board needs to be able to be made aware of it. I don't feel tonight that there's anything I can say I can't support it, and I do know we have a deep need for special education instruction. I will just say to Dr. Brabrand, I really hope also that our division has gotten better at making sure in how we evaluate our special education teachers. I'm aware of past cases where we had provisional teachers who were licensed to teach in one subject, went back to George Mason for this provisional on special ed out of their love and dedication for students, and the evaluation was being done by administrators who were not special education experts, and that presented problems and we were losing these teachers during their provisional tenure. So it's been a long night, and I don't want to belabor this, but I do appreciate the information you've all brought forward, and I thank my colleagues for your indulgences.
We'll certainly take your feedback to heart, and I will follow up on this issue about the proper evaluation of those candidates. We desperately want to attract and retain our special education teachers, and so thanks for that feedback. I'll look into it.
Dr. Anderson, would you like to speak to your second?
Just very briefly, I do want to thank Ms. McLaughlin for raising this issue, because while I was able to review some of the documents, some of the rationale on board docs, there were some greater level of specificity that were provided during this brief staff conversation. So thank you. Having said that, we are in a situation where the need for teachers is dire across the board. And in areas of special education, it's even more intense. So I hope that this will serve as an opportunity to recruit interested candidates to apply and commit to Fairfax County. So I will be happy to support that on that alone. And as a former teacher who did get the opportunity to benefit from similar programs where I taught, I'm very familiar with this plan and this initiative, so I'm glad to support. Thank you.
Ms. Corbett-Sanders.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for allowing me to speak to this, because what I wanted to raise the attention of my colleagues is that we have a long-standing relationship with George Mason University in the development of teachers. And so this looks like an extension of that relationship. And the more that we can do in our community to grow our own, so to speak, is we have to do more of it. And we have to do it not only with George Mason, but also with some of our other educational partners, such as Marymount and Mary Washington, because we are in a national teacher shortage. And as bad as the national teacher shortage is for general education teachers, it is acutely worse when it comes to special ed teachers. And we need to do everything we can to encourage people to go into this field, because they truly are heroes. This past week, I had the opportunity to speak at a job fair at Fort Belvoir to address people who were transitioning out of the military. And I encouraged them to pursue opportunities with Fairfax County Public Schools and to consider switching into the teaching profession, because we know that those personnel have been heroes. We know that Dr. Anderson actually served, and I meant to say Happy Veterans Day to you today as well. But it's also one where we want to capture and encourage as many people as we can who have a love of children and a love of learning to be able to get tooled and get these skills and contribute to our community. So thank you. I would encourage everybody to vote for this.
Ms. Tolan. All right. Lights have turned off.
Ms. Pekarsky?
Okay.
I did ask a question from staff that didn't get answered.
Go ahead, Ms. McLaughlin.
Yeah, so just that other lingering question. So Ms. Pratt said it's a 3-year contract, but the language is making it 5 years. So
the additional time is for contract renewals, and so it gives us the opportunity to renew the contract at the end of the 3-year period, so that those renewals are built into the contract. The possibility for renewals.
But I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if the board approves this, because of the way the language says, the board would not necessarily see this come back until after 2027?
I will ask Ms. Pratt to clarify.
Mr. Smith, you were right. The June 30, 2027 contemplated the initial renewals. However, the contract value that we've cited represents 3 years of work. So we do have the option to renew after June 30th of 2024. So we can bring that back to the board after the initial 3-year term is up, if we were to exercise additional renewals.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. So the point is that in 2024, if the division were wanting to extend it beyond the 3 years, it would come back to the board again.
That's correct.
Yes, because it's a government-to-government contract.
Excellent. Thank you all again for your assistance with my questions.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. And with that, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. The motion is before us on the screen. All those in favor, please raise your hands. That vote is unanimous. Thank you. Motion passes. Agenda item 5.03, award of contract to the University of Wisconsin. I call on Ms. McLaughlin for this motion.
Thank you. I move that the school board award the contract to the University of Wisconsin for English language proficiency assessments as required by the Virginia Department of Education for the 2021-22 school year, and authorize the director of the Office of Procurement Services to execute, deliver, and administer the contract on behalf of the school board.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Dr. Anderson. Ms. McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you again. Dr. Brabrand and team, I did want to just have, again, a little more detail than what's listed on the agenda. So I noted here that this is for a one-year contract expected to cost about $1 million, depending on the number of assessments we would end up needing to do. The question I have is, one, have we used the University of Wisconsin in the past? Is this just a recurring contract and pro forma? And if so, for how long?
Yes, I'm going to let Sloan. I want to say this has come to the board multiple times because it's around our contract for WIDA testing, and this is the only vendor that does that. But Dr. Presidio, please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct, Dr. Brabrand. This has come up before, and it is confusing, I think, just as a matter of form, because this is a federal and state required assessment that we give to all of our English language learner students, and we have approximately 35,000 English language learners in Fairfax County, which on this contract it would work out to roughly, a little bit under $30, I think, per student is what is charged. And the money goes to the University of Wisconsin because they are the vendor of the assessment, the WIDA assessment, which is used in about 80% of the states in the country. So it's going to them because they are the developer of the assessment. It is required, again, as a state expenditure with no state reimbursement for that assessment. I think that's why it's confusing.
I appreciate that, but so because they're the only vendor, this is the one we historically use?
So the state selects the vendor. We don't select the vendor, and we're required to bear that cost.
Okay, and thank you for talking about cost. Is this something that Fairfax County tax dollars pay for? Is it part of the federal funding formula, state funding formula? We talk about unfunded mandates. I'm wondering where this one falls.
I think you could probably lodge it under an unfunded mandate because it is something that, we do bear the cost. You think about, as a comparison, the state required assessments, our standards of learning assessments, those costs are covered by the state of Virginia. But again, this is a federal and state requirement that all school systems are required to bear the cost of this.
No, I appreciate that clarity, and I certainly know then that it is something we have to do, but I think it's important for the public and all of us involved to understand where this expenditure is going. So this is just coming out of our general fund, correct? Okay, thank you.
Dr. Anderson?
Just briefly, I just wanted to be sure to add that the WIDA is a really important assessment because it determines the proficiency of language for our students who are not native speakers, and it reassesses their progress each and every year, and that really impacts their programming and instruction and support level. And so this is an important assessment because it is so informative to the work of our classroom teachers. So again, I would urge everyone to please support this contract. And I remember having this conversation a little bit last year about this very contract, so it is an annual one that comes up. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. The motion before us is on the screen. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And that motion is unanimous. Consent agenda item number 6. I will now allow the Vice Chair to go ahead and read that for us.
Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules, provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval by the board of the board by a single motion. Many items listed have gone through board review, and documentation has been provided to all board members and the public in advance. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member prior to the meeting. The consent agenda items are on the screen. Is there any objection to approving the consent agenda? Seeing and hearing no objection, the consent agenda is approved. Item number 7, new business. The following are new business agenda items. There will not be a vote on these items this evening, but action is scheduled at a future meeting. The new business items are on the screen. I'll turn it back over to our chair.
Okay, agenda item 8.01, board committee reports, and I'll call on Ms. Cohen for governance committee report, and then Ms. Sternak Kofax for an update from the audit committee, followed by Mr. Frisch for a public engagement committee report.
Thank you very much. Our governance committee had our first meeting of the year, October 26th, and we met to discuss the ACSD bylaws, the addition of decoding dyslexia of Northern Virginia as a voting member of the ACSD, and the FCPS trust policy. The committee approved the addition of decoding dyslexia of Virginia, and it was added to tonight's consent agenda, which just passed. Yay! And the ACSD bylaws were sent back for minor revisions, and we will see those again soon. And the trust policy is continuing to be worked on. Thank you.
For the audit committee, our second audit committee meeting was held on October 27th, and the Auditor General introduced a new deputy auditor, Mr. Chris Migliaccio. Mr. Migliaccio has over 20 years of professional auditing experience, and prior to joining our team, he was with the Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, in Alexandria, where he served as head of internal audit services. Next, the Auditor General with the American Institutes for Research, AIR, AIR, our researchers presented a proposal on the expansion of Year 2 special education scope of work, cost of the proposed expansion, and proposed adjusted delivery schedule based upon the feedback from the consensus this board reached on September 21st. The General Auditor team then presented the results of the FY21 Local School Activity Fund audit report and the observations noted report. Lastly, the audit committee went into a closed session, and our next meeting will be December 9th. And for the AIR report, I had sent to all of my colleagues yesterday the update to the contract, and happy to discuss with you if you have any questions or comments.
I apologize to my colleagues in advance for a very lengthy report I'm about to give. The Public Engagement Committee met earlier this month. We continued our review of school board advisory committees. Thank you.
You win. However, we have one more committee report, skip committee by Ms. McLaughlin.
Well, and I'm going to rely on my wonderful partner on Skipped, Elaine Tolan, if I skip anything on the Skipped update. Yeah, where are our dads with bad jokes when we need them? Anyway, I just wanted to let you guys know that, Skip had been put on hiatus during the COVID time period, and so we really lost almost about 10 months of work. So where things are right now, which I think is important for you all to know, we just got the update, and we'll have a full Skipped presentation in December. So we have an executive committee, which has got about 16 members on it, and that's senior leadership team for schools, county government, the two supervisors, Dahlia Palchik, Rodney Lusk, and then Elaine Tolan and myself. The good news is that the behavioral health blueprint program that we have, they are going to be asking for funding to really expand mental health services here in Fairfax County. And so that was a welcome update that we're getting. More details will come in December. What they're doing is they come to the Skipped and say, we think this is merit-worthy, please give your endorsement to it. And then that goes to the Board of Supervisors. But Supervisor Lusk and Palchik already said that they think there is strong support and understanding for training and additional staff so that we can, again, not really truly help our students and families in need. Innova Hospital and the Keller Center with longtime Skip member Rick likewise are also going to be partnering on this, figuring out better ways to make sure that, sadly, children who are in crisis and are ending up in the ER and sometimes staying there for days on end, their parents have to be with them to provide supervision, and an ER is no place for a child in a mental health crisis while they're awaiting hospitalization that is more suitable for their needs. So I was just really happy to hear that with this board's focus on the mental health needs of our community, that this is really a strong push. We are scheduled, thanks to our chair and vice chair, that we will be bringing to you all a very detailed framework on community schools in January. I can't emphasize enough that while we have a lot on our plates, when we talk about educating the whole child, we talk about really closing opportunity gaps. It will be through the community schools, and I'm really excited that we're going to be bringing this to you all. Our voices are crucial to this, because how this transforms the way we deliver not just education but county services, it's right there for us on the front lines to be involved in. So that's the main things I wanted to point out. Workforce development is another big piece. Supervisor Lusk is heading that one up. Supervisor Palchuk is heading up early childhood education. We are going to get that briefing as well, and some budget requests, and really appreciate the partnership between county schools and county government to really address the needs for early childhood. Ms. Derek Annette Koufax has been one of the champions for more than 8 years as a board member, and many years prior to that. So good things are happening there. And Ms. Tolan, did I forget anything?
I think you did a pretty good job. I'm really looking forward to hearing about the community schools. You know, we've talked a little bit about it with your updates previously. So I think that'll be really exciting to hear that in January. And each of the committees that Ms. McLaughlin mentioned, we'll be again starting to meet with small groups and getting more detailed information on each of the committees that we're each spearheading. So, you know, Ms. McLaughlin's working on community schools and I'm working on behavioral health. So we'll have much more in-depth information just in the next couple months.
All done.
Excellent. Thank you. Agenda item 9.01, board matters. And seeing that it is Veterans Day, we've got our very own school board veteran. We will be starting with Dr. Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Pekarsky. I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone. Happy Veterans Day to everyone. And I just want to update in terms of the happenings in Mason District. And in honor of Mr. Moon, I'm going to continue and have this be an athletic report for the Mason District, because sports were abound. And I will start with the Justice volleyball team. After an undefeated regular season, the Justice volleyball team was named National District Champions. Woo! They went on to excel at the Occoquan Regionals all the way up to the championship game last night, which unfortunately did not work out well. I do have to say, Ms. Corbett Sanders, on Monday, they beat West Potomac, so that was nice. Sorry for you all. The Wolves fought hard, but ultimately fell short last night in the fourth set, but they will still move on to the state tournament this Saturday at 7 p.m., where they will face Herndon. Falls Church High School sophomore Haley Hieronymus qualified for the VHSL State 6A Cross Country Championship that will be happening this Saturday. She holds the record for the fastest time in Falls Church girls cross country history and is currently ranked in the top 10 in 6A. Last Friday, the Justice football team was also named National District Champions for the first time since 1994. Their first game in the regional finals is at Lake Braddock tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Woo! The TJ High School boys cross country was named National District Champions as well. Very quickly, I have to highlight marching band has been really rocking out in Mason District. And the bands from Annandale High School and Thomas Jefferson High School earned the coveted superior rating at their state assessment. And I'm going to wrap up the athletic piece, which was for Mr. Moon, with the theater piece, which is for Ms. Strauss. Because we have the Justice High School Wolfpack Theater, which is going to be presenting The Mousetrap. Edison High School, which I have a little bit of part of, will be presenting Into the Woods. And this next weekend, you can see a night of one acts presented by the Luther Jackson Middle School Drama Department, which is right here, and Puffs presented by Annandale High School Theater Company. Congratulations to all of these talented students, and thank you all, and have a good night.
Ms. Marin, followed by Ms. Tolan.
Well, I'd like to first thank our Fairfax County voters for overwhelmingly approving the school bond with 70% of voter support. So that is a tremendous showing of the support of investing in our public schools, not only the facilities and renovations, but in all the work that we do in schools, the way that schools engage students and parents and families, the way that we try to hire and retain our staff. So thank you, Fairfax County, for that firm and endorsement of our public schools and the work that we do to honor the diversity of our students and encompass that value and disseminate it through how and what we teach children in collaboration with partners who are the first teachers of students and children. I've been a bit busy with an issue that happened near Wolftrap Elementary School, where unfortunately one of our parents was hit in a crosswalk right before school pickup, and she is recovering, but it was, fairly serious. And so yesterday I was able to meet with Supervisor Walter Alcorn, the McLean District police officers who service that area, as well as PTA leaders and our school administrators, to talk about many possibilities on how we could make that road safer. So a real intersection, that's a pun, but an intersection of state, county, school policies and services. But I'm hopeful that some things will come of that. And I'm looking forward to visiting the class of a constituent who is a high school band director. And so, like you, Dr. Anderson, I very much enjoy a good band. And on that note, I will congratulate the Madison Warhawk Marching Band for taking the title of state champions in their competition. So we just have some fabulous marching musicians in FCPS. And then lastly, I'm looking forward to next week, which is going to be filled with the Virginia School Board Association's annual meeting. And that is something that I have yet to have attended in person while on the board. So I'm looking forward to getting together with my colleagues here, as well as those around the state, to see how we can advocate together and work together to improve our work here in our own division and then also statewide. Thank you.
Yes, happy Veterans Day, and a huge thank you to all of our veterans and their families. With the first quarter ending, I'm happy to have had the chance to talk with students, parents, teachers, and other staff to hear how the first quarter went. Overall, I'm hearing good things, other than a few bus routes that we're still having trouble with. And where we are seeing challenges, our school-based staff is working hard to find solutions, and I look forward to continuing these discussions as we move forward to see how we can best serve our students and to see the ESSER plans that our schools are currently submitting. Dr. Brabrand, I want to thank you for working with us to lower our quarantine time and to make vaccinations as readily available to our students as possible. Ms. Merritt, I'd like to thank you for your advocacy on this, and Ms. McLaughlin as well. For the information of the public, one item on our consent agenda tonight is a roof project at McLean High School. The McLean High School roof replacement project is part of a longevity assessment for all FCPS schools where the existing roof system is nearing the end of its life cycle. This new FCPS design and construction high energy insulation roofing system will make the building more energy efficient in both heating and cooling, lowering energy costs. The insulation covering a waterproofing roofing system also utilizes high energy efficient materials that reflect the sun's harmful rays and actually lowers the roof temperature, leading to longer roof life and energy savings. This project does not preclude any future plans for potential renovation or capacity enhancement at the high school. Yes, it was a very exciting week for Franklin Sherman, as Dr. Brabrand mentioned. Dr. Jill Biden and U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy visited Franklin Sherman Elementary School earlier this week. I am pleased to announce that Mr. Paul Vestekis has been named the new principal for Ludi Lewis Coates Elementary School. He served 6 years as the principal at Riverside Elementary School in the Mount Vernon area. Congratulations to him and welcome. Speaking of bands, the Herndon High School Marching Band will be performing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial during the National Parade of Heroes in D.C. this Saturday. The Herndon High School's NJROTC will also be participating in this event. The event starts at 10 a.m. at the Lincoln Memorial and will be an event to honor veterans. I had a great time at Lemon Road Elementary School at their dance-a-thon. It was a huge success, and I can't wait to see pictures of the principal, Ashley Castillo, working from the rooftop. I visited with McLean High School counselors and was able to meet with their young women student leaders, and believe me, they were incredibly impressive and asked lots of great questions about working as a woman in the workplace, and I'm really excited to see the incredible things that these young women will go on to do. Certainly one of my more joyful events was seeing the kindergartners at Great Falls Elementary School dressed up in their book characters, holding their books. It was a wonderful time to see the joy and the excitement going on there. I was at Aldrin and really excited to see the new STEAM work that they're doing and the incredible learning that's taking place. And today I was very happy to take part in Culver Run Elementary School and Cooper Middle School Veterans Day events. Cooper Middle School SCA planned their entire event, and they just did an amazing job. They actually had the Air Force Brass Quintet there to perform the music, patriotic songs, America the Beautiful, and songs for each of our areas of the services. I want to give a huge shout out to our design and construction staff for working overtime through the night to get the new cafeteria area at Cooper Middle School ready for that event today. Thank you so much. And tomorrow, McLean High School PTSA is hosting a panel on mental health for students. So I'm looking forward to that. That's such a big topic for us right now. And we'll be meeting with the Great Falls Citizens Association Schools Committee tomorrow afternoon and stopping by at Forestville Elementary. Congratulations to all of our fall high school athletes on completing their season. We have so many awards across Drainesville and the entire district, and congratulations to all those teams. Best of luck and welcome to our winter athletes. On to the next set of sports.
Ms. McLaughlin, followed by Mr. Nat Koufax.
Thank you. I first want to begin expressing my deep gratitude to our nation's veterans as the great-granddaughter, granddaughter, and daughter and niece of veterans who've served in World War I, II, and Korea combined. I personally appreciate the ultimate sacrifice that so many in our country have made in order to defend and support not only our nation, but to make a better world. So thank you. I also want to say that I really appreciate how much our school principals welcome us as school board members to come and visit with them. Recently, I visited the Lake Braddock Secondary School and look forward to future visits with my awesome colleague, Laura Jane Cohen. We'll also look forward to visits with Annandale High School, Woodson, and Robinson. Yesterday, I was at Frost Middle School for the Fall Student Services Advisory Council. And for my colleagues, I hope you'll all have an opportunity or have done those in the past. Dr. Brabrand, it was really amazing to see how the counseling staff at Frost Middle School, all the things that they are doing in so many different ways to support every single student. It was one of the most professional presentations I've enjoyed and made me really proud of the hard work that our staff are doing in the buildings each and every day. I was also very fortunate that Ms. Keys Gamara and Dr. Anderson joined me for the North Springfield Elementary School PTA meeting. It's always wonderful to see our parents engaged, coming out and asking extremely thoughtful questions. They were particularly interested, of course, in our superintendent search and what that might look like. So that was really good to talk about. Dr. Brabrand, I really want to take a moment to praise you and your team. You know I've been relentless on how we're handling our students who get quarantined, and I know at times with me you've had to have the patience of Job, but I really do feel that you and your team have worked extremely hard, and not only that, but you've listened so carefully to me and my colleagues in our desire to really find a way to keep our schools safe, but truly mitigate learning loss. And so this was great news that you shared tonight. And a shout out to my colleague Melanie Marin. You've really worked hard to bring healthcare experts to the conversation, and I think that's helped our board and it's really helped our system. So thank you for that. I will just put my plug in again because I told Dr. Brabrand I would do this, that I know that we don't have all the answers with test to stay. I know we're waiting on the CDC to decide what to do, but I just want to put it out there that because the flu and COVID have so many similar symptoms, I just want us to have a game plan and be prepared that we will need an on-ramp for children to be able to come back to school if they have exhibited flu-like symptoms, and that's all it really was. And so I know that as we get our elementary school students vaccinated, and yes, please, anyone watching this meeting, and if you have elementary school children, please get your child vaccinated. The science is there in support of protecting them and their lives. And then finally, I just want to end on a really happy note. Not only was it wonderful this evening to be reminded that Fairfax County has been fortunate to have so many dedicated public servants, including the great giants of Janie Strauss and Ilryong Moon, but it made me feel really good about the 12 of us and how it doesn't matter what differences we have. The 12 of us are so equally committed to making this system work better for our employees, our families, and our students. And I'm just very grateful for all of you and your deep, deep commitment. Here's to hopefully having a wonderful time at the Virginia School Board Conference. It's been long overdue.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin. That was a nice way to end. Very, very, very good. So yes, thank you, colleagues, for all of our hard work together, because it's not easy. I do appreciate you all. And I do want to thank the voters of Fairfax County for passing this year's bond. It's extremely important that we do this, and we truly do appreciate it. This is how we get our schools built and renovated, and we so appreciate you doing that. Early last week, I guess it was, I went to Rodney Supervisor Lusk's office with my colleague Karen Corbett Sanders, and he had he did this as a way to honor those who in Region 3 and that those teachers who won excellence awards in our system, and the ones that he invited were Amelia Carr from Bucknell, David Wurst from Rose Hill, and Alfonso Smith from Lewis High School. And I chose to highlight this because he was asking them questions, and their positivity just shined through. You knew why they were the winners of the teacher or principal of the year, because they had the stamina, the energy to make it through. And the things that they said when he goes, well, how are the kids? They all said, the kids are happy. The kids are happy. In my class, they are happy. And so to borrow a saying from the 60s, the kids are all right. And we hope that this continues as We continue to do things to keep them healthy from the COVID virus and safe, but it was really good to hear that from these amazing teachers who've been honored several times now. Also, I attended my APAC meeting this week, and they'll be exploring the middle school curriculum, the honors program, and the AAP program. And I too want to thank Janie and Ilryong for all of their public service, and I'm so glad you got additional honors tonight from our group and from the schools where your children have graduated from and represent. And finally, Veterans Day, thank you to all who serve. I too come from a family where many have served, and I particularly, every year, one of my cousins posts about our dads, and my dad and 3 of his 4 brothers all served in World War II together. So there's this picture when they all came home, and the face of that mother, my grandmother, was just incredible. And so I think about them and their service and all those families who have families just like that, who serve this country. Thank you for your service. We honor you not just today, but always. Have a good night.
Ms. Cohen, followed by Mr. Frisch.
I'm so glad to follow that, because I just wanted to wish a happy Veterans Day to all of our families who serve, and just a reminder of all of the families who make it possible for our veterans to serve. I've had the great fortune, Cherry Run has been an amazing place to grow up together as military families come and go, and just to get to know the sacrifice that our husbands and wives of military members and their incredible chameleon kids, what they sacrifice to make the sacrifice possible is beyond measure. I'm super grateful for my papa, who was a merchant Marine in World War II, and my uncle, who was a Marine, Charlie Battery, in Vietnam. And I think of them often, and especially today on Veterans Day. I really want to give a big shout out to Hunt Valley's Miss Raffel's 2nd grade class, who had me in last week, and just had some very persuasive letters and posters about how important monarchs are and how important milkweed is. And I'm convinced, guys, I'm totally convinced. And we're going to work together in the spring, building a monarch garden together at Hunt Valley. So way to go, kids. And Miss Raffel, your kids are amazing. We have another teacher in the audience from Hunt Valley who's cheering. I had the good fortune of getting to bring some of my legislators to school. November is Bring Your Legislator to School Month. So we had Delegate Carrie Delaney, who joined Ms. Pekarsky and I at Chantilly High School. We had Dan Helmer, who joined me at Centerville High School, and then Delegate Kathy Tran, who joined me at South County Middle School and Keene Mill Elementary School. And I must say, at every school, those kids kept us on our toes. They asked great questions about what were some of the hardest things about being a leader, what were some of the qualities that you needed to bring, tips, and we had some experiences at the schools that were just so reinforcing of some of the things that we get to collaborate with our delegation. A young woman brought up how life-changing it has been to have menstrual products in the bathroom, and it was so cool to get to hear something that I know the previous board worked awfully hard on in collaboration with our state legislature. So thank you to everybody on here who worked for that. I just want to say again, echo what Ms. Darrenette Koufax said. The kids are happy, and I know our teachers are burned out. I know our administrators are burned out. I know everybody's tired. But I do want you to know that when we get our kiddos back home at the end of the day, we are awfully grateful for you and the incredible job that you're doing. The kids are happy. So thank you.
All right. As we honor our veterans, including my Navy dad and my Air Force sister, for making sacrifices to preserve our democracy, I want to thank our facilities team, our custodians, and other staff for helping to facilitate the democratic process during last week's election. Like many of the people on this dais and thousands of people across Fairfax County, I was up early with my partner Evan voting at our local elementary school. I don't think I've ever voted in Virginia without voting inside of a Fairfax County public school. And I also want to thank Fairfax County taxpayers for approving the school bond. I would be remiss if I failed to note that this is the first school bond that will begin with net zero energy design for all upcoming renovations and new construction projects. It's very, very exciting. And like our other investments in energy efficiency and conservation, these new net zero energy facilities will save us millions of dollars in the decades ahead. And that is money that we can invest directly in student success. With that, just a few updates from Providence District. I had a great visit at Fairhill Elementary School. Principal Cooper showing me around and talking to his team, who are working very hard. I got to meet a lot of great kiddos, kindergartners, third graders, and fourth graders, and also had an opportunity to participate and listen in on the community meeting for the Mosaic Elementary School renovation project and the Fairfax High School principal selection community meeting as well. Finally, I had an opportunity to attend the opening session of the Northern Virginia Regional Juvenile Justice Symposium, where I also saw Ms. Keys-Gamara and Ms. Marin. And I want to leave my colleagues and the public with something that I heard the keynote speaker say that has stayed with me in the days since. He said, "You get what you tolerate." And that just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I love it. Thank you.
Ms. Keys-Gamara, followed by Ms. Somesh.
Thank you. So the problem with being on this end after we go through, all my colleagues have already told what I've done. So I will say that I really enjoyed being at the McLean High School this morning, participating in their Veterans Day event, where the local Rotary Club had veterans there explaining their experience. There is an initiative right now to recognize Vietnam War veterans as it's the 50th anniversary of that activity. And he gave us some really interesting details and comments, as well as a special coin to properly thank them, because unfortunately, due to the political atmosphere at the time, those men and women gave their lives and their time and their service, but they were not welcomed at home. And perhaps there's a lesson in that for all of us. But the real treasure for that was that they, Delegate Kathleen Murphy, presented a resolution to a nurse who had served, I believe, in World War II from this area. And she saved a lot of lives, and she was there. She was 101 years old. Yeah. So it was really cool to meet her, and you know, it made me think. Okay, I'm not going to be able to finish that sentence. It made me think of people in my family who have served, who were no longer here, but also that my son is serving in the same capacity, and he's just such a pistol, and calls me regularly and tells me what to do. So I want to wish everyone a happy Veterans Day. I say that when I say happy, I mean that I hope that we revisit right now how we stand together, because that's what our veterans did for us. No matter how, what our opinions were at the time, they stood for country. They stood so that our children would feel safe, so that we could have a democracy that I believe is truly under attack right now. So I do hope that we can get back to being neighbors and actually listening and not feeding one another on sound bites. So I will end there. My colleagues have already told everything else. And I hope everybody has a good weekend.
Happy to follow the sentiment, wishing our over 80,000 veterans in our county a blessed and reflective and happy Veterans Day. I wanted to shout out students at Woodson, the Cavalier Congress, who was invited to present at the Metropolitan Education Research Consortium for all their hard work in putting together equity and inclusion initiatives at the school that can be a model for our other high schools. I also want to remind everybody that the calendar process is underway. I know our staff hosted a webinar earlier this week outlining the steps, and anyone interested in paying attention to that can find specific details as to what that's going to look like on the website. TJ applications are also live, and the deadline to start the application is next Wednesday. So just a reminder to our community, any students who are 8th graders who are interested in math, science, technology, to take a look and make sure you get those in by next week. I also wanted to acknowledge some of the things shared in public comment. Dr. Brabrand, if we might consider specifically some of our payroll technicians who've been agonizing over some concerns for some time, and then the outdoor lunch piece, which I know we discussed as we head into the winter. Just making sure we are responsive as much as possible on what we hear from our community. And finally, I'm looking forward to joining Ms. Cohen tomorrow to honor Sangster Elementary School as they get their National Blue Ribbon Award, and then, of course, to join my colleagues next week at the Virginia School Boards Association Conference.
So realizing that I am between everybody, actually the two of you get to finish, so I'm going to be fast, I hope. I do want to do a shout out to our veterans and just really thank the Principal Gates at Holland Meadow Elementary School in particular, because they do a fantastic celebration for Veterans Day every single year. They bring in heroes from each of the service branches whom inspire the children. They have a gentleman who sings Old Glory that will bring tears to your eyes. He is just so majestic in bringing life to this flag through the ages. And I urge people to, when you see someone in uniform, thank them for their service. And thank them for their service not just on Veterans Day, but every single day that you see someone in uniform. And that means if they are in a military uniform, if they are in a uniform for our first responders, if they are wearing scrubs nowadays, it changes our community when we become a community of gratitude. And Veterans Day is really about being a community of gratitude. And it's 100 years ago today that our first military personnel was buried at Arlington Cemetery in the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. But what's interesting about that story is that we were the third country to have a Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and there was a young man, a young military enlisted in France, who was told to guard these 3 bodies, and then was told, now you need to pick one of them. Actually, there were 4 caskets. You need to pick one that's going to be entombed at Arlington. Kid goes, well, how do I make this choice? And they said, it'll come to you. This is not a joke, this is a true story. And so this young man kind of looked, and he had some flowers, and he essentially almost did an eeny, meeny, miny, moe, and picked this one casket that was then sent to the United States and laid in state in the rotunda of the Capitol. the only time in the history of the United States that a casket laid in state and nobody knew who was in the casket. 100 years ago, and 68,000 people visited the Capitol to pay tribute to this unknown soldier. It was incredibly inspiring, and it's something that I think we should all remember as we think about Veterans Day today and every day and every year, and give thanks to those personnel when we see them walking on the street or serving our country. So just want to add that little thought. Additionally, I had the opportunity this week to say goodbye to Principal Bezdecky's because he is going to Coates. And you're about to get a fantastic principal. He's very talented and capable. But I wanted to drop by just to kind of get some lessons learned from him. And we had a really interesting conversation, but he said, you know, Karen, the thing that scares me more than anything else today in our school system is that we have to have people teaching in our Title I schools. And our Title I schools are often the last to be fully staffed. And so, Dr. Brabrand, I will be coming to you to ask you for advice and to prioritize our Title I schools when we do our staffing in the future, because they are oftentimes the most vulnerable, and that we certainly shouldn't be coming in on Thanksgiving without our Title I schools fully staffed and using a lot of temporary personnel. Last, I did visit the Hayfield Student Advisory Council meeting, and one of the students said something very profound. He said, you know, we're building back muscle mass, and we need some help. We need some grace and understanding that, to a certain extent, when we were remote, we were able to get up, walk around, do all sorts of different things, and now we're having to build back not only the stamina necessary for being in class all day, but the academic stamina and rigor. So I thought that was an interesting perspective of a young person who is very happy to be back. The best part is to be able to socialize and be with his friends, but it is also important to understand that we need to give our students some grace in rebuilding their stamina. And last, I would like to thank my colleagues who attended the Northeast Regional meeting for the VSBA, and for their support and the support of our neighboring boards who have selected me to serve as the regional chair for the next 2 years. And my commitment to you and to the other boards is to ensure that we spend a lot of time listening and sharing best practices. So thank you.
Ms. Sizemore-Heiser.
Sorry, I'm having microphone issues. Thank you, and I'll try not to repeat what my colleagues have stated. But I do want to say, as many of my colleagues have stated, a happy Veterans Day to all of the veterans out there and their families who sacrificed a lot to support our soldiers as they fight for our freedoms. And it's interesting. I didn't really understand the life of military families growing up. I didn't have a lot of contact, even though, little known secret, I was in JROTC for all 4 years of high school, but I still didn't have a great understanding of, I know, shocker, right? Of really what a life of a military family was like, until I married my first husband, who came from a long line of military families, and he was on an ROTC scholarship at Berkeley, and living with him in San Diego, where we were first stationed, was really eye-opening in terms of the sacrifices military families do and the hardships of their life, and it gave me a lifelong respect for our people in uniform. So happy Veterans Day. Dr. Brabrand, thank you for your hard work. Ms. Marin, thank you for your hard work. All of my colleagues for our advocacy. And I'm really excited because I know this is going to help our students with their learning. So thank you for working in the collaboration to reduce the quarantine dates. Ms. Marin mentioned the James Madison High School Marching Band, which is on my list as well for their state championship. I just wanted to also put out there that this is their consecutive, state championship because unlike VHSL, Viboda did not have state assessments last year. And so James Madison won the state championship in 2019 and then again in 2021. So that's kudos to a really strong program. So I wanted just to put that out there. So congratulations, James Madison High Marching Band. And I wanted just to mention that one of the speakers talked about the need for teaching about law to our students. And there's a program that I taught when I was in law school called Street Law, which is recruiting local law students to come teach about the law that everybody should know to high school students. So I think it's a great suggestion and great program. I was excited to visit Sangster Elementary School with Laura Jane Cohn and then go back tomorrow to celebrate the Blue Ribbon Award. But I will say the favorites of my school visits these last few weeks was actually the Woodson listening tour that I did with my colleague Megan McLaughlin, where we really sat and listened to the students and heard the student voice on a variety of topics. And it was very interesting to hear what they shared from Schoology to returning back to school and the need, as Ms. Corbett-Sanders said, for stamina. And also my visit to Westfield with Ms. Pekarsky and talking to the leadership class. I really enjoyed it, but the highlight was to visit the Davis Center work sites and see our students who are post-graduate students who with special education needs who are in Davis, Pulley, and STEP, and see them at their work sites at Burlington Coat Factory and Hyatt Regency. So I'm grateful for our partnerships who give our students a chance to work and hopefully go into paid employment. So lots of other things to say, but I will stop here because it is late and it's just Ms. Pekarsky standing between us and bed. So thank you, everybody.
That's a lot of pressure, and I always have that distinction. Well, I've done a lot of things this week. My colleagues have shared some of them. It's been, as usual, a very busy couple of weeks. I do want to congratulate Ms. Corbett-Sanders. I was going to share that. And I'm very excited for your new position and what you're going to do in the coming year. I, of course, was honored to represent our board, to welcome the First Lady, and to really kick off that national vaccination effort. My favorite part of the event I'll share was the Associated Press, which was there. It was a Franklin Sherman Associated Press, but they were really awesome. So I appreciate the way the teachers really made it a great learning experience for our kids. Kids were absolutely cute. I took my kids to get vaccinated. It is the best, the only way we will get back to normal. Reducing the quarantine with the vaccines available, we can only keep getting better. So please vaccinate your children. Please talk to your pediatricians if you are worried. They are safe, they are effective, and they are the best weapon we have against COVID. I also attended the Oak Hill community meeting, and I want to thank the voters who did pass the bond. It was particularly important and impactful for my district because it will fund renovations at Brooksfield, at Lee's Corner, and it will allow for site acquisition for the Western High School. So thank you very much for your support of our public schools. I think that's my cue to be finished. So happy Veterans Day to everyone. Thank you, and this meeting is adjourned. There we go.